I think. Hey! It's sorry we're a little late here. We're gonna re-hit the part two of the Enslaved catalog that we did back in April, because unfortunately I accidentally deleted that from my page, from my YouTube page back when in May. Yeah, I think it was only up about 2 weeks when I kind of did the old I hit the wrong delete key on that whole uh Kory Clarke debacle that went down. So but yeah,
Doing pretty
I
well.
invited Rick and Jimmy to come back to discuss the albums from Monumention through Utgard, and we're going to talk about the two EPs, Caravans to Nothingness, and what's the other one called again?
Well,
Sleeping
Caravans to
God?
the Other World, and then Sleeping Gods. Yeah.
That's it. Yeah. So we're going to talk about that, and so I guess if you want to find out where we came into this band, you can rewatch part one or go back to part one and check that out first, where we talk about everything from the demos and the Phobia demos all the way up through Mardrum, and I would suggest that you do start there if you haven't watched that, because Rick and Jimmy were with me on that, and we also had Devin with us on that as well. So we're gonna start here with Monumention, and Rick, I think you have that album, correct?
Yeah. Let
Rick,
me go ahead
you
and
want to show that one?
pull
I'm
it
gonna
out
pull you up on solo here.
and pull my notes here.
All right, let me do a real quick thing. Do you want to show the album for me real quick? And I'll give
Yep.
the history on it real fast, and then you can give your thoughts on it. Monumention was issued on November 19th, 2001. It is on Osmos Records. It was recorded at Greek Howland Studios, and it was produced by their longtime producer up to that point, a guy named Pitton. And I know the guy's name, but I didn't look it up, so you'll have to look it up. But killer artwork on this, probably one of my favorite covers of theirs. But go ahead, let her rip, Rick. Give us some thoughts on this one.
Yeah. I
Up,
mean, just
Evan.
to give everybody a little bit of context, like it's been a few months, right, since we did the part two that no longer exists. This being the recap. So my opinions have changed. So if any of you actually watched that first iteration, the opinions may not be exactly what it is months later, just because my palette has just, like anything else, it evolves. And these deep dives are just like a snapshot of your opinions at the time. So that's a disclaimer.
Yeah, exactly.
So Monumention, 2001.
What's up, Kevin?
What's up, Kevin? So this is a interesting year. They came out of Mardrum, and I think that last album I said it was quite chaotic for me and very just disjointed, and they were trying all kinds of things, exploring. They kind of went all out, I think, with that. And I like all their albums, but I think if you were to put this one next to that one, this one I think still falls in that really out there and just crazy, just experimentation like they did with Mardrum. Let me see what I wrote down here. So I kind of revised my little bit of the notes since the first iteration. First thing you notice here is there's no logo. This particular pressing here just says Enslaved, which is not really their logo. I guess it's just so there's no logo on the front. On the back, they still have the old logo here, but it's not on the artwork, which they usually have on their covers. I think out of all their albums, this one is now the thing about Enslaved is a lot of their songs have these sort of eerie and nightmarish moments, with sprinkled in. I mean, it's black metal, but this right here, I think as an album overall, the whole thing, it's kind of very intentional. It's very, very much that way. You got to get that whole Hellraiser feel with this, just kind of with this, which he's popping up right here, and the whole thing is just kind of loopy and just very, very dark. It's okay. What did I say? Yeah, the whole like Elliot Spencer thing, puzzle box. I just get that whole feel up here. Do you guys hear something?
What's that?
I hear like a crackling sound or something.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what that is. Just a little bit.
All right, it's gone now.
It's not me. Now, do you hear my fan in the background?
No, it's quieted down now. It was just a little distracting. But yeah, it's just this whole thing is very otherworldly. There's a whole lot of atmosphere here. There's a certain kind of cold weightiness to it, like a very heavy cold mist. I think it's what I said the first time around. My opinion hasn't changed on that. I still feel like it's still, it still carries that through with the album. From the production standpoint, just what they're trying to do creatively with the riffing. It's chaotic, but here I think it's a little more controlled than their last album. Again, this is a band that's just always exploring, always trying new things, and I think over time they just get a little better and a little more cohesive with those ideas. The first track was Vinyl to Nothingness. A very good opener. I think you said it earlier, Jeff. Like, Enslaved with their opening tracks, they definitely know how to do it. So I think that the next track, Voices, got a real cool main riff. Melodic, slow lead guitar. It just has this echoing. It kind of just monstrous. It just fills the room. Vision Spear of the Elements. A Monument Part 2. I got a question mark next to this one. It's a prog thrash. Sometimes they do that.
Yeah,
they go a little. It kind of sounds a little bit like the opening track. It ends it with a nice kind of blues, almost like a Sabbath-esque closing part, which is very unusual for them. Really, really cool journey. It's also one of the shortest tracks. We also have Hollow Inside. It's spacey, psychedelic, heavy use of that mellotron. I love it when they do that. The singing's kind of I don't know. It kind of reminds me, just when I listen to it, a little bit of that Jim Morrison thing. That they're looking a little bit of that spirit in there.
Now that's the one track that nobody in the band sings on. It's Outside Singer. I'll bring that up then.
Is that right? Okay.
Yeah,
well, that would make sense.
That's not Grudla or anyone else in the band. It's I don't know if the guy was a pop singer. I tried to find information on him. He has done other stuff and sung on things, but it's a guy named what's his name here? Trigiv Matheson. Trigiv Matheson. I don't know how to. It's very Floydian, I think that song is, and that album's very Floydian.
Maybe because of the mellotron and stuff, it just kind of makes it a little more just retro, and just kind of gives that feel, that era.
For sure.
What else? We also have the Cromlech Gate. That's their, I think I said that last time too. I really like that track. It doesn't sound like an Enslaved song, so it's a weird place to put it. It's like right smack in the middle of the album, and it's like that's like their Death Doom song. It's got a very doomy vibe, very fitting for this concept, especially when they're trying new things. You can kind of see it here with the sort of earth and this, kind of on fire here. Just kind of give you a little bit of the theme, what's going on here. So it's just a lot of internal conflict. Let me see. Yeah. So again, it kind of reminds me a little bit of Cathedral and a little bit of that Paradise Lostness to it. What else? We have the Sleep, Floating Diversity, Monument Part 3. Yeah, that's the very proggy, very proggy song. It's again, this one also stands out from the other tracks. So there's quite a bit of variation here. I'm noticing as a theme here. And again, they're trying to explore and find new stuff. By this time, they're done with the whole Frost Eld sound, and they were moving more and more towards being more recognized as up the proggy or kind of band and standing apart from the other black metal bands at the time. Let's see. Outro Sub-Zero, another nightmarish track, slow, burning dense. The drum work, it's kind of it's a little bit industrial to me. It's got a consistent kind of clanging sound. Maybe sunlight chains. And then the last track, which I can't pronounce, it's like Sigmundus. There might be a lot of this going on just because Norwegian, right?
That's the traditional that they do.
It sounded a little bit out of place to me, but it's the one that's kind of chanty, and it's got the Viking sound on this one. I didn't get a lot of Viking in this album, like the previous albums, but I think this track kind of brings a little bit of that to form. It kind of signifies a bit of a rapture. It's a nice conclusion to the album. So really good. It's I think if you're gonna start this album, you're gonna be taken aback if you're gonna go forward from this, and this is your introduction to Enslaved. This is probably not the best introduction to the band, just because it depends how much do you like the weird and out there progginess. If you just want that kind of album, this is it. But if you're just trying to explore Enslaved and know what their sound is like, this might be a weird one to begin with. So that's my take.
Here we go. Oh, there we go. I wanna do this and leave all of us on next time. So I'll try to figure out. Let's see. Can I put you? Hang on. Let me figure out how to do this. Why do you keep putting me in there? Hang on. Trying to remember how to. You know how Marty does it, where he puts the person that's speaking in the side panel there, but he keeps putting me up there. Why does he keep putting me up there?
You might have to hover over the person you're trying and select. There's solo layout, and there's one other. Maybe I'm not sure.
You're doing it from the phone, right?
Yeah, I'm doing it from a phone. So maybe I can't do it that way, damn it. God damn it. Son of a bitch.
Well, there's some questions here while we're doing that. Has Enslaved ever broken up since their inception? Not that I'm aware of. I mean, band members have came and went, obviously, but the main player pretty much stayed throughout the whole tenure.
I'm just trying to figure this out here. Well, I guess we're gonna have to do it this way. With so now, Jimmy, I'll bring you up and solo you in, and then because it's easier to comment if we're all seeing each other, but I'll try not to comment. The only thing I wanted to bring up there was did you guys? This is the same guy that's been doing their artwork, right? Since Marjoram, I believe. I don't usually note that, but I remember reading somewhere.
I'm not sure. I would think it is because it kind of.
I think it's the same guy since Marjoram, and he goes up through, I believe, Vertebrae, maybe, or Retier, maybe it was, yeah. So go ahead. So give us your thought on this one, Rick. Did you guys want to do a number thing on this like we did before, or do you want to bypass that? It's up to you.
I didn't give a number.
I gave my numbers. What's that?
Did you? No, I didn't do any numbers for this one. I kind of
I'll probably put numbers in for mine just simply because I kind of relate to that,
Okay.
Like doing it in a magazine or something. But you guys don't have to. If you think you want to do it, go for it. If you don't, that's cool. So go ahead, Jimmy. What's your take on this? And I think we should mention one quick thing that, while everybody kind of points to this being the prog album, I really do think that Marjoram was the beginning of that prog phase. They were doing it. They did some on Eld. They did some on Eld. Like the long track 13, 16 or whatever is very proggy. But I mean, Marjoram is where the transition really started, and I think it kind of came full circle with this album.
Yeah, because they kind of, with bringing Roy Kronheim to the band, they kind of came out with that banger of an album, Bloodheim, which was kind of like I said in their first part, was kind of like their sort of punk rock black album, and then they really kind of just let loose on Marjoram. I pretty much agree with everything that Rick said, because Marjoram was pretty difficult record for me as well, as was this for a long time. One of the things I really value about these deep dives is I really, getting ready for the part two, but when we did it the first time, but especially for this one, I went back and I really invested a lot of time into this album, because if you're an Enslaved fan, I also agree with what Rick said, is that, not a good place to start. If you're
I agree.
And I mean, like, unless you're really out there kind of stuff. this one takes some commitment, but when it clicks, it really clicks. And then I start to wonder, like, why did I find this to be so difficult when it really
Right.
is? It got to the point to where it felt very natural to me in a way, which is kind of interesting when an album.
Right.
They always say the best albums take the most commitment, and I think
The Growers.
probably rank pretty high for me in terms of their discography because, this was definitely the end of that sort of era, which was kind of a short era of them really just kind of just going all out and just, throwing everything that they could at it. And I think that Roy Kronheim had a big part in doing that. And
I agree.
I think Rick did a good job of breaking down all the tracks. Convoys to Nothingness is really the only song I've ever heard them do live from this. I'd love to see them do the whole thing live with.
So would I.
And it kind of like knowing the rest of their discography, it makes kind of sense to me why he didn't really last too long because maybe. I know there were some issues with him anyway, like there might have been some drug issues or things like that. But he definitely had sort of a vision for where he wanted to go, and that this is pretty much the Ivar and Grootley, team. They're the ones that really steer the ship in this band, and maybe that wasn't going to jive with him going forward. But I think some of his finest contributions to the band are in this. He only has 2 writing credits. I think is. The Vision Sphere of what is it? I can't even read it on the Sphere of the Elements. That's the 3rd track. Great riffs on that. I really like his riffs overall on that song. And then his other contribution would have been the Floating Diversity, which is really my favorite track on the record and kind of the most like Floydian, very psychedelic, like Rick said. There's even, you can tell they're channeling. Roger Waters and some of the vocal department because it's clearly a nod to him the way that Grootley is not he's not English, so it's funny how he kind of like did that very blatantly to call out their sort of love for Floyd. But there's it's an interesting album. The production is a little it's not raw, like it's clear, but it's got kind of rough edges to it, which kind of adds to it, I think. But there's a lot of really heavy, kind of doomy, dirgy kind of stuff going on that they don't really do very often, especially with the Cromlech Gate, which is kind of like a Death Doom song, but it has like Cannibal Corpse style riff in it, and the only 2 tracks that I've never. Still not really quite clicked with was Enemy 1 and Smear. Those are really out there, and those could have been easily on Mardrum. But overall, this is. I'd like to see them go back and do something like this again because it was just such a. You can tell that they just really went all out and just did whatever the hell they wanted to do, and just but it's one of those records that they have a lot of records that are pretty catchy and easy to get into. Once you've kind of delved into some of their catalog and you're a fan of the band, then really go spend time with this because that's what it did for me. It really took a lot of time before I really appreciated this, and now it's really become one of my favorite records by them for sure.
Cool, very cool. Well,
I need it on vinyl too. This is one of the only ones I don't have on vinyl, and I need to correct that. So.
Yeah. So just a back history, a tiny little bit. This is the first Enslaved album I got. And I don't even recall where I came up. I think, it was right around when I got into Blackwater Park and started to finally, figure out death metal or black metal and was like, oh man, I'm really missing stuff. And I can't remember if I read about it on an online, probably a forum. You know how it was back in the early 2000s, early internet days. There were those metal forums, and I'm sure that's where I learned about them. And I got this album, and I love the artwork when I got it. I thought, man, this looks killer. I think I got it from The End Records. I think we talked about that out in Utah, which I don't even know if they're still around anymore. I think they are, but I think they're owned by somebody else, and they have all like rap and crazy weird shit on. But anyways, I got this album in, and being a prog guy, it wasn't quite as hard for me to assimilate to it. Now that doesn't mean that when I got it, I listened to it incessantly over and over and over, but I do recall getting it and thinking, oh, this is pretty cool, man. I would use the words trippy and psychedelic. There's a lot of psychedelic stuff going on here.
Yeah.
There's a lot of Hammond organ. There's Mellotron. There's a lot of cool keyboard sounds that they had not used before this album. Although I kind of recall, I think there was some on the Mardrem, and a little bit on Eld, if I remember. Yeah, Eld.
It's still it's a badass trip though. It's like it's nightmarish. You know, to me it is.
It's, it's dark. It's dark. It's kind of unsettling a little bit, and this album ranks very high for me. It ranks, and again, you know how it happens a lot of the time where the first album you get from a band that you come in on is usually where you tend to your sweet spot, and this one just never lost its shine with me. I think it's good that you said that, Jimmy, that you have to invest a little time in it because you start to acclimate to it. I luckily didn't have to acclimate much to it, but it every time I go back to it, I'm like, man, I just really love this album. Let me do some quick notes on it real fast. I'm not going to go crazy like I usually do, but should be noted this is the first album with all English lyrics except for the last song, The Standard. It was also the last album with Roy Kronheim. He left after this, and I think you said, Jimmy, you read somewhere that might have had a little something to do with drugs or just a difference of opinions.
Yeah, I think Kronheim might have had some issues there. I don't know if that. I think they've always said that they parted ways because of he wanted the music to go in a different direction, and he wasn't a band leader, so
right. So this opens with Convoys to Nothingness, which is one of my favorite songs of theirs. God, I love that song. It just opens so mysterious, and it just reminds me of like I don't know, for some weird reason when I hear that song, the beginning of it reminds me like I could envision myself driving on a desert highway at 2:00 in the morning with that blasting and just being like so into it, and then suddenly up ahead I see a fucking UFO land in the middle of the road that abducts me and anally probes me. That's what I think of when I don't think of the anal probing. I'm kidding. But it's just one of those things where it's just such a evocative sound on that guitar and the way that it rips in, and Gritla's vocals are so killer. The screams are killer. Guitar tone is super sick. Just a killer song. Voice is another really proggy, thrashy black metal gem. I love that song. Hollow Inside. I love this song. I don't know why. I just think it's such a cool song, and it's kind of unlike, they've really not done anything like it since then. It's very progressive. It's got the Mellotron. It's got the watery, washy vocals, and again, that's this guy named Trigev Mathiasen. Very Floydian, epic Hammond organ section. So good, man. You know what it reminds me of? Reminds me of Uriah Heep. That's probably why I like it so much. It's got the vocoder in it. Such a good fucking tune. Cromlech Gate has some death metal vocals in it. But it's like you said, Rick. It's got almost a blues-based riff there towards the end. It's got some really cool synths on it. Really dig Cromlech Gate. Enemy One's more of a death metal type song than a black metal song. It's probably my least favorite song, but I still like it. Sleep, Floating Diversity. Again, Uriah Heep, Deep Purple, Floyd. Love that song. It's so freaking cool. And it does sound like Roger Waters singing it in a weird way. I give this, I love that album so much. I give it a 9.5 out of 10. I just really love that album. And every time I listen to it, I kind of like it more. It's like I find something else to discover. It's like there's hidden secrets every time I listen to it. It's like, oh man, I didn't notice that really killer, guitar solo part right there and that ebo right there. So yeah, would I recommend you start with that album if you're coming into the band fresh? No, I probably wouldn't, but it ranks up there for me pretty highly. So Rick, how about we? Let me see
Yeah.
if
Well, also like like prog is your wheelhouse. Like you're big. So like if you're just getting into this genre to begin with, that's another reason why I say maybe not start with this album until you're more well acquainted with this genre. You know,
right.
not just like if all you liked was the Frost era Eld kind of stuff. You know, I mean, this is worlds apart from that style. Again, just in trying different ideas. Like everything you said, you know, I agree with. It's a great album. I grow more appreciation for it over time.
And I'm just trying to figure this out real quick here. So wait,
Yeah.
if
And
I
I'll say
do,
that you know, that was like what was so, because I mean you can pretty much like put the tag prog on pretty much any Enslaved record. I mean,
right,
even if like some of the early records are like, you know, just a very slight you know, a slight prog, you know, influence on the music compared to this that is almost kind of like truly like a prog record.
yeah,
You know, to me, like that was kind of what was so hard for me the longest time was to marry that like real heavy prog that they were leaning on this record, as well as that really scathing, you know, black metal aesthetic or whatever you want to call it, but just really scathing and jarring kind of unsettling black metal at first for me was like hard to marry those two. And I
yeah.
think that's what it takes some time to realize how kind of genius it is that it really does work once you've given time to invest into it.
Oh yeah, and they dig deeper into it. I don't think they dig in. They get proggier, but this album is more pure prog than the future albums that come up. I mean, they incorporate a lot of elements of prog in the stuff. Why does it keep going back to that? Hold on, guys, this pisses me off. Yeah, we'll stay with this. But yes, Logan, yeah, Monumention. We're wrapping that up right now. But you know, this is if you had to say which album of theirs is the most proggiest, I would say this one. But the next 7 or 8 albums have a lot of prog in them. You know, there's
Yeah, this is like their Crimson album almost. Like they're just
right.
really like
Mhm.
experimental prog kind of thing.
Yeah, like I said, I hear a lot of Uriah Heep on this. I hear some Deep Purple on it. It's you know, it's a very interesting album that they never really quite go back to that style at all. They just streamline it into the upcoming albums. So, are we ready to move on to Below the Lights? All right, Rick. How about we go with Jimmy on this one? We'll go back and forth between you two guys.
All right.
Jimmy, you got Below the Lights to show?
Yeah, I don't have this one on vinyl either. One of the only ones I don't have. Yeah, so I think this is kind of the record that they sort of so Kronheim was out and they kind of realized they were going to go in the direction that they wanted to go into and needed to hire some guys that were more in line with what their vision was going forward. And this one definitely shows kind of where they would this is definitely like a transitional record in that it shows what they would become after their big experimentation and start to sort of streamline their songwriting and making an amazingly good career choice by hiring R. Weisdale on the guitar, because who's been with them since. Brilliant lead guitar player. Doesn't really write. He's a lead guy. That was what Ivar needed to do. It was a perfect decision for him to say, I just need somebody that's going to, not only back the band, but, really introduce an amazing lead element, not because Kronheim did that, I think, in the last couple albums. There were some amazing leads. And I think Ivar's always kind of been more the songwriter, kind of rhythm guy. So brilliant choice on bringing him on board for Below the Lights. And Dirge Rep, this is his last one as well. I think that as a drummer, I think his best drumming was on Bloodheim. I think Dirge Rep was probably a more black metal guy.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, I think going in this direction, I mean, he kind of was just, you can tell, like the drumming is totally solid on everything he's done. It's just a little more in the pocket for this stuff. But this, I mean, it's as far as Swept Clean the Earth, the first track, I've seen them play that one before. Really just kind of gives you an indication of where this is going to go. And the Dead Stare is where you get the first really big Arv Icedale just amazing solo. The Crossing, they played at Fire in the Mountains, actually, and that was one. Yeah, I'd never seen them do that one because I've seen these guys play quite a few times, and I never saw them do the Crossing. They did that that night, as well as Havenless. And when they did Havenless, that was like one of those moments, you know, because they were all, you know, arms in the air doing the Nordic thing, and you know, while the sun was going down, and it was quite special when they did that track. It's marrying a little bit of the Norwegian with the Americana there.
Right.
In Wyoming was really, really kind of neat. Yeah, you know, I mean, this is, I wouldn't say like a 10 out of 10 or anything. I mean, maybe like a 7 or 8. It's definitely a fantastic record, and really just kind of showed where they would go from here.
Rick, do you have the album? I think you have the album, right? You want to show it?
Yeah, so this this one also lacks the big giant Enslaved logo.
Hey Rick, hang on one sec. You're really blurry tonight. When you're not, is that an autofocus type camera? Because now you're getting clear now.
Yeah, I think it just depends on the connection. I am in the basement after all.
Yeah, but you were clear very early on. Then now you're clear. You're very clear right now. Put the album up slow. Like bring the album up. I'm wondering if it's yeah, it's all blurry. I don't know why. That's kind of weird.
I don't know.
Huh. Okay. Never mind.
Yeah, when I switched over to the YouTube tab, I can see like on the StreamYard, of course, everything's fucking crystal clear. But
yeah,
here,
weird.
Which sucks, you know, obviously when you're trying to look at the artwork.
There it is. It's pretty clear there.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a little better.
Yeah, I might just have to keep it still. But yeah, like I was saying, it's, you know, this is them branching out and trying new stuff again. I think everything Jimmy said definitely applies. You know, bringing Issa was a really good addition, and that's why I think this is a very like if I were to introduce somebody to Enslaved, I wouldn't hesitate with this one, especially if you're not like if the Pink Floydian stuff and the Monumention thing, it's not your thing. This is being there's only one album, you know, over this one, like it's quite a guitars album. It's definitely a guitar fans album. I think Ice had a lot to prove and a lot to demonstrate. Obviously, with this one here, I think with this one, the production. I think, and I said that in the first iteration. It's to me, it still sounds like the warmest, which I think really works for this tonally, just because the last one was quite cold. And if it doesn't sound warm to you, maybe it just does by contrast. If you're just comparing it to Monumention, just, you know, going head to head with that album. What did I write? It is a great opener. It's the fire swept. What is it? Clean the Earth. It's kind of haunting. You got the woodsy stuff. It kind of encapsulates what's going on with the cover. I think that song really captures that feel. I think overall with this album, the transitions from a production standpoint is very smooth. It goes that way. If you're playing this in the background, there's nothing really super abrupt about it. So it's very, very, it's like butter. You know, everything just goes. There's there's a lot of thought put into the tracking order on this. So I think the way the tracks are laid out from beginning to end make a lot of sense. So I didn't question it at any point. Yeah, first track, you know, once you go into like 3 minutes in, they're really good with your transitions. They know how to break things apart. Second track, the Dead Stare, cool ripping solo, about 1 minute and 30 seconds in. It's a nice build up to the sort of like thrashing proggy section. Got some cool keyboards, very spacey. Looking at the Crossing, cool track. I love the drum work, especially on the intro. It's kind of marching like. Let me see. Queen of Night.
It's a good one.
Nice menacing riff. It crushes. I love the way that song starts too. The clean vocals on it, I love too. Everything just shines here. And like you said, fucking Fire in the Sky, man. Like Havenless, it's the song I would choose for something like that. You know, that must have been epic, Jimmy. Just hearing them perform that there. But I think overall, it's a very, to me, this is a very smooth album. It's very easy to get into with this band. It's very much to the point. It's very focused on the guitar in the mixing. It's not so far to the front that nothing else stands out. I mean, again, I do love the drum work on this. The clean singing, everything about it, it's, you know, right up there. So definitely a favorite.
Cool. I'm gonna leave all of us up here while I forgot to do my little run through. So the album Below the Lights came out on Osmos again, April 14th, 2003, and Fitton was once again the producer, and it was also recorded at Green Island, which they did a lot of their albums, their early half of their catalog, and the next two or three they did at Green Island. They lived there, and that's the big the super cool place to go in Oslo, I guess, where Mayhem recorded and what's his name, Varg recorded, and Immortal, all those guys recorded there. So, as Jimmy said, they added Icedale or Arv, what's his last name?
Icedale. It's Easdale, I guess. And they
Easdale, that's it. Yeah, Arve Easdale, that's it. And they also had a guy named Dennis Reckiton that played studio synth on that as well. So first two tracks are just monstered, man. As Fire is just such a killer opening track. God, I love that track, man.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
The Dead Stare, another monster track. And one thing that I think you'll find, I feel very strongly about this, is that Enslaved is very, very good at placing an opening track on an album. They seem to have a real knack for writing a song that kind of sucks you in to go, all right, well, that was pretty damn good. What's next? As I said, Dead Stairs Killer, some really cool soloing on that. The songs are a little more streamlined and hard hitting. They're a little shorter overall. The Crossing would be kind of the epic prog track on here. It's got a nice long intro that transitions a bit abruptly into the vocal section of the song, but it's one of those songs that I think, I'm surprised you haven't seen that, Jimmy, because I'm pretty sure I've seen it. Well, except for when they did Frost, I know they played it every other time I saw them. It's so good. Queen of the Night has a flute solo in it, which is really cool. Very proggy, yet still black metal, especially the vocals. There's a little less they have less of the old Norse vocals on this, and it's more a traditional sounding tune that that was like the single. Ridicule Swarm is the all-out black metal track. I love that one. Darker Place has elements of prog, death, black, especially in the vocal lines, and the vocal tag. I love that track, man. Below the Lights was kind of the apex of what they had been trying to incorporate into their sound overall from Marjoram on through Issa. They kind of perfected their songwriting best for me on these next two albums, even though they're more compact in terms of the songwriting. This is my sweet spot from I kind of really like Marjoram, although it's really weird, but these three albums are my sweet spot with Enslaved. I love everything they do, but these are the three albums I reach for the most. This one's a 9.5 out of 10 for me. So next up, if you want to show it, Rick, do you have Issa?
Yeah.
All right. So,
which, by the way, needs to be reissued on vinyl badly because
that was hard to find, right?
Yeah,
that was kind of true. Issa came out November 1st, 2004. Once again, Green Holland. And Fitton also was the producer. Now, that was their last album. Below the Lights was the last album on Osmos. They jumped to Candlelight for this. They also added Cato Beckvold on drums. and Herbrand Larson on clean vocals and synths and keys. So go ahead, Rick.
All right. I think that Below the Lights is very more, and we're talking in Enslaved standards, more of the conventional album, which I think was a good way to kind of get a feel for bringing Ice on board. And after Monumention, I must have bet that them trying to go all out proggy again, like the way, maybe not like the way they did it with Monumention, but I feel like trying to explore a lot of those avenues again, this time with Ice on board. It's a very interesting way to see how he would perform that kind of range, and it just further showcases how flexible he works with this band. So let me just go ahead and pull my notes. So this came out only a year after, which is they must have just been eating and breathing the practice room. It's just coming up with shit and throwing ideas around. So this album, it's when I first listened to it, I thought it was going to be more like Below the Lights in some way, though the cover should have clued me in that it wasn't. Easily my favorite track is Lunar Force, which is the second one. It's just so strange. It's got this sort of begins with this sort of fast repeated riffing. There's these effects going through. It feels like a journey. It feels like there's a bit of gravity going on. I think the name is really fitting. It gets to this sort of this trippy sound like 3 minutes in. There's some really interesting shouting going on towards the end.
Yeah,
it's just really, you can tell they were trying to explore in different things. They were going for the more unconventional type of stuff. Again, Enslaved standards. Issa, another really good track. I love it when they get to that main part, and you just screaming the title of the song. That really helps you win. Let me see. So yeah, Lunar Force is a long one too. That was it's like 7 minutes compared to the other tracks. Ascension, another cool. It's a mid-pace track, very ethereal. I think with a lot of help from the keys. Bound by Legion. Let me see. It's got a cool, got some cool like bluesy lead guitar. And I like when I know I keep bringing up Ice a lot because I think he adds a lot to the band, and I think that his guitar work kind of introduces some ideas that work with what these guys were trying to do. And I like the way he does a lot of the bluesy kind of leads that that I haven't really heard before on the previous material. The way he did it. What's the other one? Violet Drawing. Yeah, that another one has the opening riff. It's very dissonant, kind of jagged. It's probably the coldest sounding track on the album. It keeps a sort of steady pace. It's got this sort of a galloping style kind of drumming. Nice background, clean vocals. Kind of adds to this sort of ethereal feel. Return to Yggdrasil. I think that's how you say it. Nice, clean vocals, serene. It's probably my second favorite track, next to Lunar Force. Secrets of the Flesh. It's instrumental, really. It's grooving, and it does have some background vocals. It's not the main thing. It's not very prominent. That's why I still consider it kind of instrumental. It's got some nice depth. So it's not one I return to a lot. It's got its places in the middle of the album. What else? I think the other one I have the other notes on are Neo Genesis. That's a long one. That's like 11 minutes. It's kind of starts out kind of airy. It's kind of crimsonish to me. The slow one on it's kind of dreamy in the middle there, in its own right. But I think it's just a really good way to sort of kind of just end out the album, along with the outro. But yeah, I love the direction they went with this one. They didn't do Below the Lights Part 2. You know, this shows you this band is ready to take risks pretty much at any point, and it definitely showed it here, and I think it paid off.
Just saying hi to Maya. Hey, Maya.
Hi.
Hello, Bassman. What's up? What's Bassman's name? Somebody said it the other day.
Oh, Drew.
Drew, that's it. Drew. Hey, Drew. What's up, dude? And we got. That's a good question, Kellen. I think there are definitely defined eras, although I think that, and they are earmarked somewhat with the change of members, but there's always kind of a core Enslaved sound. I think every one of their albums still sounds like Enslaved, whereas some of the differences might be in that, with the exception, I would say, of Frost maybe and Bloodheim, which were two very cold black metal albums, they still always have this consistent Enslaved sound. They just, you know what I mean? They don't vacillate so far into one, except for maybe Marjoram. I could see why some people would say that, and maybe Bloodheim, which was all out fucking, like you said, Jimmy. It was almost like a punk black metal album because it was so extreme. It was just insane speed all the way through. And very good though, still very tasty. They've always done the one thing that I think Enslaved's always done exceptionally well is they've incorporated a lot of melody, even when they were still doing black metal stuff that you could say, oh, that's pretty raw black metal. They always still sounded a cut above most of the other black metal bands out there. Mainly because they just had a really good sense for melody. And they're able to write songs that incorporate a number of different influences in them and still come out not sounding like, it's not like they wrote their one Mayhem album or their one, Dissection album or something. They've always still kind of sounded like Enslaved. So, you could almost say that, well, okay, there's the, as I said before you popped on, Kellen, I kind of look at Monumention, Below the Lights, and Issa as a trio of albums, and they're my three favorite albums by them that have a very similar thread running through them. Even though if you threw on Monumention and Issa, there's not, you wouldn't say, oh man, that, the one sounds like a Pink Floyd album, the other doesn't. It's not, Issa doesn't sound like Pink Floyd, but I just think that they've always kind of had their own distinctive voice, and they've always kind of, Gritla and Ivar have always been very adept at steering the ship into not sounding like everybody else in the genre. And that, I think, has been very important, that they've always kind of had their own sort of vibe and sound going forward. So, and I don't really necessarily think it's, you guys talked about Icedale coming in. I think he was a really important addition, obviously, and he's the third longest tenured member at this point now. He's been around since Below the Lights. But I don't know that he changed their sound so much as he added to it. He created a different sound. Let me throw my notes on Issa in quick here. I love that opening, like you, Rick, the little synth intro into Lunar Force. Lunar Force is killer, man. I love that song. And then it goes into another one of my favorite tracks, Issa. Every time they do Issa live, I love it, man. So good. And they usually play that live. And again, it's a 1-2 killer punch for them on openers for albums. Ascension's a really, really killer kind of epic, proggy, powerful song, along with Neogenesis, which is towards the end of the album. That one has, they're kind of, I guess, the two longer centerpieces of the album. And the other one to note on here is Return to Yggdrasil. It's a very pensive, almost kind of a ballad, but it gets very heavy as it picks up speed, and I really, really like that, because I'm not crazy about the Yggdrasil song on Frost. That's the one song I don't love out of them. I always have a tough time deciding which one of these three albums are my fave. It kind of shifts depending on my mood. I think the addition of Larson made a huge difference. His clean vocals are absolutely fantastic. And Kato's a really, really killer drummer. The guy's got a lot of feel. He can kind of do it all. He can prog and he can black metal and do it well. To me, I kind of feel like this was this 3 albums run was a creative high point for them. That's not to say they didn't put out great albums afterwards. They did, but I just really think these 3 are really special. For me, they are. This is a 9.5 out of 10. So, Jimmy, did I skip you?
Yeah, but I can go next.
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, I've got this on vinyl. This is just a Back on Black pressing. And, Back on Black kind of gets so I've got quite a few of their pressings, and some of them don't sound very good. This one sounds fine, really. But it's very overdue for a repress. I mean, this came out, was this a Candlelight release or was this Osmos? I don't think it was Osmos because they would have repressed it if it was Osmos.
Yeah, I think it was Candlelight.
Mine says Candlelight.
Yeah, I don't understand why they haven't redone this.
I think that one's hard to find, isn't it? Like, without it being pricey.
I mean, I got this years ago on, I think, Discogs or something like that, but I've never seen, anything newer than this pressing. I don't know how many they did.
Not in the wild.
Yeah. 2 LP. And, the artwork's kind of cool. I mean, I've never really liked Enslaved the most for their artwork, even though, I mean, it's cool. It just, I wish for this album, which for me is kind of like one of my favorite Enslaved records, I think I would probably recommend to anybody that had never heard them, maybe start with this one because, for a few reasons. I mean, this is kind of where they built up to from Below the Lights, and bringing on 2 new members. That was another great investment. And I think it really kind of comes down to the fact that Ivar kind of knows exactly what he wants. And that's why Ice Dale was such a good inclusion. But now you've got Kato on drums who could do a lot of shit that previous drummers probably wouldn't. Not to say that they couldn't have done it, but he just brought that sort of refined drumming element to the music, and obviously was perfect for this because they brought a more kind of refined sound to the, a little more polished, a little more streamlined, a little more kind of just, there's a lot of earworms on this. It just digs right into you. I mean, perfect intro with Lunar Force. I mean, I wish they don't ever do that one live. Issa, they do that one a lot. Issa, they did at Fire in the Mountains. The second track they did was Return to Yggdrasil.
Oh, really? Wow.
Yeah, they did that, and they did Issa as well. But they always do Issa. That's like one they rarely.
Yeah, they do. You're right. That's a standard for them.
But there's a couple of really. I mean, Bounded by Allegiance. That's like one of my favorite songs by this band. It just has a little bit of everything, and it kind of throws all these different influences into the bucket, and it just kind of works perfectly as a song. Beautiful track, really. And Violet Dawning as well. I mean, there's just some really cool synth stuff going on there. Just kind of transcendental kind of feeling with the black metal. And Secrets of the Flesh is just a headbanger, just a jamming, kind of like rock tune almost, A lot of variation on this record. And then obviously ending with the big epic Neogenesis. And they've always said, I agree, they have a knack for openers and closers of each of their albums, and Neogenesis is kind of like the big epic prog track that kind of goes all over the place and really works well. And I just like that they really solidified an amazing lineup going forward for this band. Her brand was a great addition, because there's a lot more emphasis on the clean vocals, and it's amazing to me, because I always thought when I first got into Enslaved, I always thought it was Grutley doing the clean vocals on this because he did, clean vocals on previous albums. Bringing on Her Brand, it was like the guy has a little bit more ability when it comes to clean vocals, but still kind of sounds similar to what they were trying to get at in previous records. But just,
you're right. You're right.
I mean, fit like a glove perfectly, and culminating in this. And for me, I mean, this is really one of my favorite Enslaved records. I'm going to try and not use this too much tonight, but I would give this one a 10 out of 10 for sure.
Now, see, I'm feeling like we peer pressured you into not saying 10 out of 10 tonight.
Well, I was saying it
I
a lot about a bunch of records the last
I
time.
rarely ever give 10s on anything, but like I said, Monumention, this, and Below the Lights, they're all in that 9.5 territory. They're that close. You know what I mean? But you're right. Her brand has a similar tone to his voice, the clean vocal that Gridla has, except for he doesn't have that. It's cleaner in terms of it's a little more sweeter sounding. It's a little less. When Gridla sings clean, you kind of hear a little bit more of that, almost that Norse kind of vibe to his voice. Her brand's a lot more smoother, I think, is what it is.
Yeah, we didn't touch up on that when he came into the picture with this band, but he was another really good addition.
Yeah, I mentioned it. Yeah.
Yeah, you see the picture. The two new members have white T-shirts with Kato.
And, shit! Yeah, I didn't notice that. Yeah. How about that? That's cool.
Yeah, and they weren't really figured out their logo yet either. I don't know if you could see it, but there's. Wait, where is it at? Yeah.
Yeah, I'm like, what is this?
It's just starting to turn into what it would eventually turn into, but it's not quite.
Yeah.
You know,
it's like a prototype. We'll see that logo one more time.
I really like that artwork on that album. I think it's super cool, man. It just has a real. All three of these albums have really cool artwork, I think. And I mean, in all honesty, there's most of Enslaved's artwork has been pretty top shelf, but these three albums, that's a good run, man. The only one is the next one is kind of a little lame, but I mean, this would definitely be one I would suggest somebody that's asking about. I would say, yeah, this would be a good starting place. You know,
yeah,
for me.
I think between this or also, like I mentioned earlier, I just want to emphasize a point. This is only a year apart from Below the Lights, so it's like
right.
I think that they had these ideas already behind their pocket for a long time, so that's why they were able to kind of crank this one out.
Yeah, you wonder if some of this material was written in around the same time. You wonder about that. I think that Ivar is just so well, and Gridla too, because he writes quite a bit too. But their partnership is so dynamic and so, they kind of read each other's mind on writing music, and I think that they're very, very prolific writers, but you know what I mean. It's not like they're writing 90 songs; they're writing 15 or 20 really good songs, and then they're able to say, yeah, you know what, let's keep that for the next one there, I would think. But that'd be something I probably would ask Ivar if I ever met him, would be like, how much of your stuff do you have for the next album, or do you only record what you write for the album, then do you move on? You know what I mean? It's hard to
that's
know.
the beauty about this band. Like, it really is their baby. Like, they're not involved in 20 other projects. They're not, they're not like a Mike Patton where they have like 30 bands and they can have all these ideas or now go, wow, I can use this for this band or that band. This is their band. This is what they do, and this is what they throw their ideas.
Ivar does have one side project though, right? Skoja, or what's it called?
Oh yeah, yeah. I have something here too, but I'm saying they don't have any side. But I'm saying, but this is the main thing, and this is whereas everything else, they don't have three main bands. This is their main thing.
Yeah. All right. So Jimmy, you want to do the next one? We'll go with Ruun. Yeah, that one.
Yeah.
Let me go out the data on it real quick.
Yeah, go ahead.
So that came out May 2nd, 2006. This is the first album that they self-produced. It was recorded at Grieg Holland, and again, this is on Candlelight. And go ahead, let it rip.
Yeah, kind of still sort of trying to figure out what they're doing with the logo. Artwork, kind of, I don't know. I guess I should take it out so we can maybe kind of analyze.
That's not the greatest one.
No, it's not all that great. I mean, I'm sure it has some kind of meaning to it. But
yeah, it's in keeping with the whatever the name is, but it's kind of boring for them.
Yeah, the insert's kind of cool.
That is neat.
They still sort of. I wish they would have just stayed with this logo.
The old logo.
Yeah,
I love it.
Logo. But changing with the music, they wanted to kind of. This is another back on black pressing. Yeah, it's almost like they just like blew their collective loads on Issa and coming in with this one. I'll say this often. I don't think this band has a bad record at all. I mean, even their worst records are still really good.
Oh yeah.
I would probably rank this one a little low, but that said, it's still a really good record. Maybe they're just starting to kind of move a little bit away from the heavier sound and get more towards like, a heavier rock kind of vibe, while still maintaining like, their sort of blackish roots. But it's kind of getting to a point to where it kind of feels like, maybe it clashes a little bit. But that said, I still really like this record a lot. Entroper is pretty cool. I mean, right off the bat, you're going to kind of know what this record is going to do with that track. I do feel like the songs on here really kind of work well together. In terms of like the concept, because it's not like they're, whereas like Issa, they're throwing a lot of different things at it, and it worked really well. Whereas this one, it kind of feels like all the songs have something more in common with each other. But kind of just more rock and kind of a little bit more restrained kind of feel to this, not as big and bright and, just refined as Issa was. And, but there's, obviously Ruun, the title track, that's kind of a fan favorite. They do that one a lot live. They actually did that as an encore at Fire in the Mountains. That was what they closed out on.
Oh, cool.
Which was cool. I mean, I just feel like I've seen them do Ruun a billion times. They have such a huge catalog. There's so many songs I would have liked to have heard. I mean, really, they only did like 10 songs for the show, but there's a lot of good stuff on here. Tides of Chaos is really good. Essence and Apivat. The second, I really feel like the second half of this album is probably the best part of it. But I mean, I don't really have any like stick out favorites. I mean, Ruun is like a really great track. Fusion of Sense and Earth, and but Tides of Chaos and Essence, I remember those being every song is good. There's nothing bad about this at all. It's just maybe it wasn't quite. It was just them kind of going in a little bit of a different direction and trying different things, and maybe kind of just reining it back a little bit.
Well, I think too, it should be noted that this is their first time self-producing, so they may, Rick and I were talking before you came on, Jimmy, and we kind of noted that the production on this is a little less bright. It's a little less in your face, maybe, and that may be because they're learning the ropes in the studio as far as doing their own production decisions. You know what I mean?
Yeah, like the guitar tone is starting to kind of not be as sort of in your face as it
right.
was.
Yeah. So, Rick, how about you jump in on this one here?
Yeah, I'll start off just like you did. I think the first iteration of this stream we were going on about this, and that peach pit in the middle there. Like, what the hell was that about?
Oh, right.
It's very, very suggestive. And then they have the nerve to do it again in the back. So I don't know what that's about.
Is it on the back?
Very missed opportunity because so I got this slipcase, right? And one of my peeves is when the slipcase matches the art exactly inside. They could have used this opportunity to do something more interesting, to go with the packaging. But
I didn't
anyway.
I'm pissed. I didn't get the slipcase version. Damn it! I just had the standard tool.
Want me to just mail you the cardboard?
No.
So anyway, and this CD is kind of weird too, the way it's laid out. Just that line. Like you said, I think the biggest point of contention here is the production with this. Again, Enslaved don't have any bad albums. I think a lot has to do with they got enough variety of things going on in their catalog that there's always something there for the mood that you're in. So if you're looking for something a little more out there, a little more guitar driven, more keyboard oriented, a little more atmospheric, but this right here, like you said, it makes sense when you said that they're starting to do their own production. I'd almost say this, and dare I say, it's almost like the grunge prog album. It's got a gritty, tonally, and I don't know if that was their intention. But this is what I hear with the results of the album overall. The guitar tone is thinner, but it's also very compressed at the same time. You can kind of make out all those things with the notes, but I feel like there's not enough expansion going on with the tone. So you almost have to rely on the keys, and the bass on it makes it. I don't know if the bass is pumped up to be thicker, or maybe it just sounds that way by consequence. Kind of pairing up with the guitar work. So it's very untypical, compared to their earlier catalog. So, okay. But I think overall, Nice set of songs. I think the ones I noted were, for example, the second one, Past the Veneer. Let me see, the beginning, second half, the guitar melody kind of leads into the sort of mellow part. I think it's executed very, very perfectly. Again, the musicianship on it is really good. The production apart, it's kind of Pink Floydish to me. It goes back to the sort of upbeat and back to this harsh part. Great way to end the track. And then we're up to Ruun. It's got this cool sort of like psychedelic kind of opening riff. It's got a little bit of that chugga chugga kind of patterns going on. It almost sounds Dream Theater-ish to me. It sounds like something they would do for that particular moment. Another one is Tied to Chaos. Another one that kind of just shows how compressed the guitar tone is. It kind of, to me, kind of makes like some of the notes kind of drown out a little bit. It kind of makes the bass sound really thick on this one. There's not a lot of variation going on with the song. It's pretty consistent, straightforward, kind of all throughout. Air to the Cosmic Seed. Very cool. It's got some psychedelic moments in there. Again, they know how to end an album. Done pretty well. But again, the production, I think, is a bit of an acquired taste. It's one that I not spoke very highly of the first iteration, but I actually I changed my opinion on this. I actually going to kind of like it. I like it more or less because it's so different from the catalog. None of their albums sound like this one, you know, in any form. So that's my take.
Yeah, hang on.
It's kind of an outlier, and that's cool.
Yes.
You know, I mean, it's you go back to it, it still is a really good record.
It's kind of grungy to me. You know, it's still within that black metal kind of.
That's an interesting point that you brought up, because that was a word I was going to use. It almost has a slightly grunge type style production where some of the stuff bleeds together a little more than it did in prior albums. But yeah, this one really, I remember very distinctly, this was the album I only gave like a 7 out of 10 for, and that was low. That was the low mark for the second, you know, phase of this thing that when we did it. And man, when I listened to it yesterday, I'm like, what the fuck was I thinking, man? This album's really good. You know, let me hit some high points quick. Entrapper, really cool opening song. Again, another great opener. It's driving yet melodic. It has some proggy moments, especially on the chorus. Path to Veneer is really, really good. And I believe that might have been the quote unquote single for the album, if I recall correctly. Really like the interplay. It's a really epic song, but it's quick hitting in only 4.5 minutes or so. What's the third track there? Is that called Fusion?
Yeah,
Fusion.
Yeah. That's a really solid black metal tune, but it still has a little bit of progginess to it. It's not my fave. Ruun, I really love that song. It's brooding. It's got a King. You said it was kind of Dream Theater-ish. I hear some King Crimson-y vibes in it, like Red era King Crimson. Yeah, especially in the guitar playing. I really dig that track a lot. It's probably my favorite on the album, actually. Tides is very solid. Essence is the big, you know, tie-in prog track at the end. There's a lot of really cool chord voicings on that album, and it flows at a mid pace, but it flows really, really well. That's another top contender on the album because it's very, very atmospheric. Apivat is great. So is Air to Cosmic Seed. And I think I kind of regarded this album a much lower a few months ago because I guess I felt like some of the songs almost had a poppy edge to them, dare I say. But they're so well written and performed. The musicianship is amazing. And again, I think, like we just said, it suffers a little bit in the production. And it also suffers a little bit being the follow-up to Below the Lights and Issa, which were just so fucking incredible. Yeah. That might be its biggest problem, is that it follows those two amazing albums. You know, Ivar by now has become a top songwriter. He knows how to write tracks that evoke the ethos of the band. This thing jumped up from like a 7.5 or a 7 to a 9 for me. It really is that good. I was kind of like, what was I listening to when I get, because I remember
I'm
giving
with
it.
you on that. Yeah, for some reason I was just like I don't feel like I should have liked it the way I did compared to the first iteration. I'm like, what was I thinking?
Weird.
I put it on, like,
but the guys in the chat like Kevin and Baseman, those guys are saying, a lot of times, with catalogs like this where the bands are really, really good and they have highly consistent albums, it's hard to on any given day you can pick an album and go, wow, that's way better than I remember it being, or you know what I mean? There just isn't they don't have a lot of lows, if any, really, in their catalog. And I think that makes it really hard sometimes because you're almost like, man, I can't keep saying this band has like 9s and 10s out of 10s. You know what I mean? It's just, I can't do that. It just doesn't make any sense. But, in reality, with this band, it's not far from the truth. They really are, writing 8s, 9s, and 10s pretty much every album since they got started. Did anybody have some comments in here? I don't think they're talking.
Just a testament how good they are. I mean, if you didn't like one, but you're a fan of the band, you go back to it later on, you find, wow, my mind has been changed. I mean, that's happened to me for many of their albums.
Yeah, I mean, so I guess we'll move on to. I think we're moving on to Vertebrae, right? Am I in the right
Yep.
album?
Yeah.
Who has it on vinyl?
Not I.
Okay, Rick, let's throw you up.
That's one of the new pressings, huh?
Yeah, 2019. Double.
Who's
LP.
that on? What's that on? Osmos?
This one is Norse.
Oh, Norse. Okay.
Norse music.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, really interesting artwork.
Yeah.
Kind of just makes you wonder what is going on. But
it's yellow instead of red. I think it's red on the CD, isn't it? The colors.
Actually, the CD I have, it's still this color. I double checked because that's what in my mind I remember it being
mine's red.
Okay,
yeah, mine's red.
I remember. I'm like, damn, because my press is still like this one. So I got them in both formats. So this is the first time we see this logo here, which will end up being their permanent logo going forward. Mm-hmm. So very cleaned up, and I still like their old logo. Just like that whole, but again, going with their sound. A lot of these bands, when they move a certain direction, they feel compelled to kind of clean up and simplify their logo. So kind of makes sense. There's another Vertebrae. So though this came out so Ruun was 06, so this came out in 08, and same lineup. But I think that they figured out the knobs, and the production on this is much brighter, and just cleaner overall. Again, I don't know if it was how intentional the last one was, but I think here they definitely went for more of a. And this is the beginnings of that era when they begin to sort of move towards a wall of sound approach with their stuff. It's not as prominent here as it would be going forward, but you start to hear sort of that being initiated as far as the way they do the composition and everything else, and it's just the texture of their sound.
Hey, Rick, just let me interject real quick. Because I keep forgetting to give the data on the album. It should be noted that they signed to Nuclear Blast for U.S. distribution here, and they were signed to an indie. It's a Norwegian label called Indie Records for European Norwegian release. It was released September 28th in Europe, October 29th in the U.S. I couldn't find any production information, but I guess they did the production themselves, right? You said?
There's a big difference. It's just a lot. Again, the tone is different. Everything is just kind of brighter. And I don't know if it was because of that whole. Again, I don't know how else to describe it. It's just more of a sort of enveloping wall of sound kind of approach, building up that atmosphere. So they kind of started moving away from more of the groove thumpy kind of stuff they were more dependent on as far as the mellotron and also they were doing before. Here they're moving in a different kind of direction with their prog element with this, again relying more on just sort of the shroud of sound building on this. This one here sounds it's angrier.
Well, you know what's interesting about this album? The one thing that I did learn about it that was kind of really interesting is, you know who mixed the album? Joe Barresi. And you know who that is? The Tool guy. The guy that did Lateralis. So, yeah, I was kind of very surprised when I read that he mixed that album. Because they go with Jens Bogren after this. They go to Fascination Street for all the mixing going forward from here. This is like the one weird album that, you know, has that strange mixing credit in there for Joe Barresi. So I don't know if that's, because it does sound a little different. I agree.
Okay. You know, I guess with the way, I don't know how far ahead they're writing this material before the album kicks off. If they do the material, put out the album, and they write new material, or they have a whole bunch of stuff in their back pocket.
Yeah, I was saying that before. I wonder what the deal is there.
But here it's quite a move away from Ruun. Even when you listen to Clouds, it becomes kind of apparent. I love the sound of the keyboard here. The keyboard's a lot more prominent. I think with this era, they start to you start to hear more of that. There's not so much of the guitar always up front in the mix like it was before. I think here they sort of allow more room for the keyboard to really shine more noticeably than you did before. Just as an enveloping thing for the album. Between this and then you hear more on the next one too. Again, the first track reminds me of sort of like Argento flick, which is pretty cool. I don't know if they just didn't have the notes with me for this one. I don't have a whole lot of notes on this one. But I think just overall with this one, it's more consistent just overall as an album, sort of song to song on this one. You got a song like Center. It's kind of trippy. The melodies are like it's like a force trying to pull you under, and you're trying to go the opposite. So I kind of have that sort of tension going on with this one. You got the Watcher, appropriate title for this track. It sounds kind of heavenly. The keyboard almost overwhelms you. It almost overwhelms the guitar, really. But I think that's intentional. Part of the craft of what they're trying to go with that sound. A good decision to close the track with. There's a side D on this one. There's a Crimson cover for Red, and Earthshine, which is a Rush cover there too.
Shit, I didn't know they did those. I gotta look for those. I had no idea they did those.
It's kind of
because they definitely weren't on the CD. They're not on the CD I have.
Yeah, these are. I think they're bonus tracks. I don't know if it's a regular thing now with the newer pressings, but I know when it first came out, I don't think that was it wasn't on there.
That's an interesting Rush cover too. That's not a typical, not a typical song that covers something off Vapor Trails like that, right?
They're like a non-typical band. I couldn't see them do like Tom Sawyer or something.
I wouldn't either. But I mean, I could see them doing something more like, like Anthem or, maybe Passage to Bangkok or, something off 2112. Earthshine's just a really unusual song to pick. Great song. One of the better songs off that album. Wait, is Earthshine on Counterparts or Vapor Trails?
Vapor Trails.
Vapor Trails. That's what I thought. Yeah. I mean, Vapor Trails is not one of my favorite albums, but that's definitely probably my favorite song on that album. Very, very cool. Jimmy, what do you want to say about Vertebrae?
Yeah, one of the I think this is the last one I don't have on vinyl. And I also wanted to show my cool little Vertebrae that.
Oh, look at you!
My wife found this on a trail we were hiking.
Oh, no way!
And I remember when she picked it up, I was like, God, that looks just like.
Yeah.
And actually, it doesn't. It looks nothing like it, really. Well, maybe a little bit.
Well, no, it does if you turn it. Yeah, it does. Just the wings are longer there, but I think it looks a lot like it actually.
That's right. There we go. Yeah, it's just a little bit longer and a little different. Obviously, a different animal than whatever.
Yeah, I wonder what animal that came from.
This is probably a deer or something.
Deer,
yeah. But,
that could work as a stand for the CD. They could probably use that to prop the CD on there.
Cool
yeah.
I was thinking about trying to make a future Ruins logo out of it or something. But anyway, I felt like this record was like, I've always felt like this is like the furthest that they've the furthest they went away from, like, if you look at their sort of trajectory of where they went with their sound, they went to this one area and then they kind of went maybe a little bit back. It's like this to me was like the furthest that they went in terms of like moving away from like a heavier metal sound, you know. Now, not to say that it's not metal, and it does have angry elements to it, but definitely in terms of the production and the guitar, you know, with Ruun, where like Rick said, that sort of rock and bopping kind of stuff, they went a lot more heavier on the prog side of things with this, but definitely still with, I feel like, the most subdued that they've ever sounded. You know,
that's a good point.
Very evident when you listen when it kicks off with Clouds. I mean, it's the perfect statement for what you're gonna hear with this album, and it's a great track. For me, I would probably rank it fairly low in terms of my favorites, but it's still very, very good. And like they sort of did their homage to Waters on Monumention, there's a major homage to Gilmour on the song Ground, where it's very clear that they're channeling a Gilmour-esque, you know, style, especially in the vocals.
Guitar sound.
Yeah, and then especially in the chorus or whatever it is in that song, it's clearly a nod to Gilmour, and they don't hide that, and I like that. It's cool. It's like it's not like they're ripping something off. They're paying a beautiful homage to a band that they really dig. And also how you guys were talking about Barisi and his like involvement in this. There's a very clear nod to Tool in this as well, in the song Center, which is my favorite song on this record, the second to last song. You know, it starts off like this weird kind of proggy, kind of doomy sort of section, and it's kind of divided into 2 or 3 sections, but like the second section, it goes into this clearly Tool sounding moment, very, very slow, brooding, like guitar part that you would expect to hear on a Tool record. And it's, I don't know if they intentionally meant that to be a throw out to Tool, but it ends in this really beautiful moment of the record. The way that the guitars and the synths kind of play off each other. And it really just kind of turned into one of my favorite songs they've ever done, for sure. You know, The Watcher was a really good closer, and that's one they've done pretty often live as well.
Yeah.
They do that a lot. They haven't done it the last couple times I saw them, but I would say I think a lot of people, Enslaved fans, did not really like this one. Didn't really jive with a lot of people. But I think it was an ultimate statement for them before they would go with what they would do next. And it's another really good record for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I'm trying to remember when I picked that one up. I remember my buddy and I talking about that we were like, you know, this album, Rick used the word Rick used the word grunge. This album has a lot less.
It's the gritty. I think overall in the production on Ruun, like where you really saw the contrast. It sort of gave it that tinge. You know, that's why the door came up.
Let me pull my notes up and see what I have to say here quick on it. Yeah, this is not one of my favorite albums of theirs, and I'll tell you the reason why. I think there's one main reason why. There's some really cool psychedelic and almost quote unquote mainstream rock vibes on this album, which is not a bad thing, but it's kind of a solid but somewhat uneventful album. And the reason I say that is because everything's kind of the same tempo with the exception of 1 or 2 songs. It all is that mid-pace sort of thing. There's not a lot of scathing black metal. There's not a lot of real proggy sounding stuff. The proggy stuff is all sort of one speed. You know, so I guess my only major criticism of it is that there's no huge super high points. I do like the opener, Clouds. It's pretty cool. Has a guitar solo from Ronnie Latecro of the band TNT, the Norwegian kind of hair. I guess you could call them hair metal. They were kind of a hair metal band in the early 80s. They have some really good albums like Knights of New Thunder and Tell No Tales and My Religion. There's some really good shit. I really like them. Ronnie's a killer fucking player too. To the Coast is solid as well. There's a really good hook with that. The mellow lines in it are almost weird and jazzy. Probably the least black metal album that they've done overall, I would say. I don't know if you guys agree, but I think that's kind of what you were trying to say, Jimmy. That there's not a lot of like tremolo pick black metal on this album. It has more of like a 70s rock album vibe to it with some black metal vocals on it. Ground is a single track and it's really catchy. I recall when I saw them open for Opeth on this tour, it was the first time they played that. It was really killer. Let's see. It's kind of a more accessible sound on this. Vertebrae's Proggy has a driving insistent. That's another killer tune. New Dawn has a thrashy verse, but that goes into a mellower chorus. Reflection is pretty cool, heavy prog, groovy, riffy type song. That's kind of a favorite for me, Reflection. And again, lots of cool sounding guitar tones on this one. The center is just a really cool brooding track, and it really shows off Herbrand's really great vocals. The Watcher was probably the second most aggressive track vocally on the album, which I like that one a lot. And I remember them playing that. I think The Watcher was also a single too, or maybe that was the single. Trying to remember off the top of my head. I'm pretty sure it was.
Well, they had a video for Clouds, I remember.
Oh, did they? Okay.
Yeah.
That's what I thought. I thought they had a video for Clouds. With the exception of New Dawn, everything on here is kind of one pace. And the production, while great, isn't super dynamic, as everything sort of sounds a bit samey, so to speak, because of the lack of tempo shifts. It's still a really, really good album. The shorter songs maintain a good bit of progressiveness and pace in them. And I'd still give this like an 8 out of 10. It's a very much a solid album. It's just probably at the lower end of their catalog for me. So, and now we're on to 2000. Whoa, what was that? 2010's Axioma, Ethica, Udini. Who wants to show the album of that?
I can start.
Okay.
Well, everything you said about Vertebrae, I think this Axioma, Ethica, Odini, which is a first. Let me get to the title. So, okay, so I got this CD copy, right? And we kind of laid out here. So this was supposed to be laid out like this. So you got the Axioma.
Oh yeah, I remember you showing this. Yeah.
First time around. So for anybody who missed it, I tried to look into this. It's like I don't know if it's Latin or something. Like it's meaning the eggs of Odin. So take that as you will. So putting it side by side, you can see more of the rest of the artwork here.
Yeah, I don't have that cool version you have there. I don't know where you got that. I never saw that. I have that one there.
Yeah, it's cool. So for those who don't know, it's a 7-inch. Chuck were here, he would say 45. So all it really is the two bonus tracks. Yeah,
okay.
Which it's actually already on here, which is Jotun Blood and Migration. You can kind of see it in a circle there.
Yeah.
So it's basically the same thing. It's just for this particular edition, they decided to split it out into this 7-inch, and then the actual CD, of course, is here. And obviously, it's just more practical to get it in this format. But the package is cool nonetheless. So I kind of just keep it around. It's a bit of a novelty item.
Yeah, I never saw that one before. That's cool.
Yeah, it's just cool to have around. It's a bit of a novelty thing, but like I said, if I want to listen to it, I'll actually pop this one in. Because again, you can get to the bonus tracks easier, and you don't have to worry about having a turntable around, or anything like that. So this to me is basically an upgraded version of Vertebrae. I think it's it still has sort of that accessible semblances that you start to see kind of creep in from the last album. So you brought up the A word, and I was going to for this one, but you start to notice that I don't know how intentional. It might have been just some of the metal elements being scaled back. So this is why I think the more accessible part of it and the more rockier parts, just start to hear some of the guitar and some of the tone and some of the chord arrangements take on a more of a rock kind of direction with this. And the prog is still there. You still have that wall of sound going on like you did with the last one. I think here again it's more controlled. They have a more of a idea of how to sort of use and construct that style and build up from it. Versus this is why I think overall I like this album better. Going back and re-listening to Vertebrae, I think I might have ranked a little higher on the first iteration of this stream. But next time around, I'm like, I don't know, it didn't grab me as much. Maybe because from track to track, it was just a lot more tonally consistent.
Yeah.
And whereas this one here, I don't know, it stood out more to me. It was just more catchy.
Agreed.
Let me just pull up the notes real quick.
Yeah, I agree that Vertebrae just has sort of one speed for the most part. This is nice, a lot of nice peaks and valleys.
I don't know why they did a yellow version over here. It's interesting how they're trying different colors and different stuff with the packaging. Great album. I think overall, I love it. The best, for Enslaved for me, I love it best when they're at their darkest and grittiest and just more, or sometimes the 180 when they're totally out there and just balls out weird. So it's kind of with those weird contrasts. That song, what is it, Ruun? That album, that being as the third track on here, I think did it for me. It's just so dark, it's just so harsh. Along with the beat, just following up with that. So again, that being my favorite track. But overall, I do like the second side a little better. Night Sight, I think that's my second favorite one. It kind of hits a sort of emotional center for me. Really good, clean vocal moments. That really shines. And then I think the only thing I have is for Lightning. It was just the last track, and it's one of the few moments on this album where like the lead guitar, particularly in the intro, it really shines. It's just I think the clean vocals add a lot to the sort of the atmosphere that they're building on with this approach, and they're really figuring out how to use Burkhard for this. He's really going to really be even more prominent and important to the band. It's very noticeable at this point. But that last song is a nice sort of relief from the intense churning that was building up to the just the overall scope of the album. I think it's a good way to end it. And this is just another example of how they know how to end an album.
Jimmy, ready to hit this one? Yeah, I agree, Rick.
Yeah, this is another Back on Black pressing. Shocker. This was actually a gift to me by my cousin for his wedding. I was stood in the wedding, so he gave everybody a gift, and very kind gift. This is a silver kind of vinyl.
Oh, sweet.
But I mean, I'm surprised Nuclear Blast hasn't repressed this as well. But I think this was a pretty defining statement for the band going forward from here. I think, coming off of Vertebrae, they got a little bit heavier. I think it was a great choice to go with. Did you guys say Jens Bogren was the guy?
Yeah, Bogren. Yeah.
I mean, great choice, because the production is fantastic.
Stellar.
On this. It's heavier, it's kind of back to like a more in your face kind of sound, and it's a little bit more like streamlined again in terms of like each of the songs are, relatively decent length. There's not really any huge like epics or anything like that. There's just a lot of good, 4 or 5 minute songs. I would agree with Rick that Ruun's probably my favorite track on here. Never seen them do that live. I think the only thing I've ever seen them do live on this record is the first track, Ethica Odini. And there's so many other ones that they could pull from here that would be great live. Yeah, I think just I I think this is a near perfect record. I love every single song. I mean, there's nothing out of place. I mean, it's almost like at this point they feel like they're just like they didn't even really have to try that hard to put out a record that just was kind of just felt right and sounded good. You know, like they didn't have to really go too heavy deep into like a prog direction or whatever. They just, at this point, they've established a lot of different, facets of their sound that it all just kind of came together really nicely on this one. And this would be another one that I would recommend to anybody that is looking to get into the band. This is a good one to start with as well, because it's just, most of the stuff is very catchy on here, very earwormy, just,
yep.
All the members have a chance to shine. I particularly like the last track, Lightning, with her brand just sounds fantastic on that. A little weird. There's a lot of their kind of weirdish kind of elements, but overall, like maybe one of the catchiest Enslaved records ever, a definite sign as to like, this is kind of the dawn of a new era, I think, for the band. And what was this, 2013 or 12? I mean,
that was 10, 2010.
Was it 10? Okay, so 12 years ago. Can't believe it's so that long.
Came out September 17, 2010, and that's Nuclear Blast. And again, they produced, but they also got involved with Ivor Sandoy, who becomes their drummer on the most recent album. He actually helped them produce Going Up Through. I don't know what his involvement or how I don't know if he was working with other bands or how he became involved, but
right.
The production on this album is fantastic.
Yeah, it sounds so good. I mean, it's just the production suits them really well.
Yeah,
the artwork is really cool. You have to, because like the cover is really. I wish they would have just gone with this.
Yeah, that's such a great piece of art.
This right here. I mean, that's just so cool.
So cool.
And they kind of just did sort of a part of it. So this kind of almost like harkens back to Issa in a way, like just the way it looks. Yeah, man. I mean, like this. I don't really have anything bad to say about this one. It's really and for me, like back in the day, like this is one of the albums I really got into the band was starting with this one.
That album makes Vertebrae look like a prototype to that one. Like that's just a step up.
Yeah, I mean, and you could feel it. You could feel like the transition that okay, we really kind of went this way. Let's just bang it out. It feels like that's what they did when they wrote this. Let's just bang it out and just hit you in the face and come at you with what we do best. And yeah,
I would argue this is probably the most accessible Enslaved album in terms of earworms and melodies. Every song is just really, it sounds, first of all, what you start to see a little bit more and more and more is Larson has a bigger role as a singer. And they do start to get a little bit into, I don't want to say cookie cutter, but you start to see a little bit more of the, okay, we're going to have the verses, we're going to have Gritla do the harsh singing, and then on the choruses, we're going to come in and just grab you by the balls and give you this really amazing chorus with Herbert and Larson singing these epic melodic choruses over top. And it works. It just works. So no wonder that they were doing it, Let me give you a couple quick thoughts on it real fast. As I said, it was the first mix by Jens Bogren. And in a weird way, I said you could almost say Axioma is their pop radio-friendly album in many ways because the melodies are so memorable and in your face. This album sounds massive, killer, and the clean vocals of Larson are even more out front than ever before. Also, while still having a lot of black, even some death vocals, it's just a lot more accessibility than it ever was before. But it still is very much an Enslaved sounding record. Ethica Odini gets things off to a hot start. Killer track, melodic, heavy, anthemic, amazing musicianship. Raid Ho also has a super catchy chorus and driving verse. Riffs with some of Grutley's nastiest black metal screams on it. Ruun is a great chugger. It's got a chugging riff to it that's really super catchy. And the template is kind of set for most of the tracks to follow big, beefy, riffy verses and super catchy choruses that sound majestic and huge and melodically very ear-pleasing. But all the tracks have some very proggy unexpected bits in them. There's also a lot of dynamics in these songs where they incorporate tons of depth into the fabric of the song constructions. The Beacon is a very black metal sounding track initially, coming at you very savagely, but then settles into a more familiar Enslaved type arrangement. Axioma is a nice interlude. Giants, oh man, I love Giants. What a killer track that is. Very Deep Purple sounding at times, very classic prob sounding. And the last track, Lightning, is an unreal highlight. So good. This period is where I feel Enslaved have sort of, okay, so that's the end of my thoughts on that. And I do give that a 9.5 again. But this is also the period now coming up where I feel like Enslaved sort of have fallen into a comfortable territory where all these upcoming albums are very good to great, but they do sort of follow a pattern of songwriting that's more of a bankable template. Not saying that these albums all sound the same or that the songs all follow a pattern. It's just that the music has a lot of interesting moments, but also feels like I've kind of heard it before vibe. So I wanted to throw that caveat out there because we're getting into Retir, we're getting into In Times and E and Utgard. And I do hear, with the exception of maybe Utgard, I do hear some similarities in some of the tracks here, and I'll be interested to hear what you guys say. So does somebody want to pull up, who wants to pull up Retir? Jimmy, you want to go? Well, I think Jimmy had didn't Jimmy, did you say had the vinyl?
Yeah, I got it.
Yeah, why don't you pull it up and go first? Let me real quick just throw up quick production notes on Retir. Where'd it go? Sorry. Came out October 9th. Multiple studios used, Enslaved and Ivor Sandoy producing. Indie again for Europe and Nuclear Blast for the United States. And again, Jens Bogren's mixed. Go ahead, Jimmy.
Yeah, this is probably my favorite cover art that they did. I just think that's so cool. I actually used to have, I had the hoodie of this when I think one of the first
have the t-shirt.
I think no, the second time I saw them, second or third time I saw them play live was on this tour, and I had the hoodie, and it had this on the back, and I lost it. I don't know what happened to it. It just disappeared. So you know how sometimes like stuff just, I mean, you just have no idea what happened to it, and it's gone. But
usually I either left it somewhere when I was drunk crashing somewhere, or somebody ripped it off, you know.
Yeah. But even in the inner artwork is really cool. Just
that is neat.
I like the inside. Reminds me of that Supertramp album. Like it has that spacey.
Yeah. Crime of the Century.
Yeah, just has that vibe.
Yeah.
Oh, and I'll show you the vinyl too because this is kind of cool. It's like a charcoal splatter kind of deal.
Oh, nice.
I think this is a nuclear.
Now is that Nuclear Blast? Yeah, I was wondering.
Yeah,
probably.
But it's
that's pretty cool.
Yeah. I like this one a lot. I mean, it's, you know, like you said, Jeff, like, I mean, like I think, like I said, Axioma was kind of like this kind of defining statement. Like now, like they're kind of free to like maybe start like experimenting again. And I think that like, I think this continues, like they definitely kept like the heavier sound intact, the really bright in your face like production, but and maybe just kind of pushed it forward a bit. I think, I mean, there's some of my favorite songs on this. Thoughts Like Hammers, Death in the Eyes of Dawn. I love that song. It's one of my favorites. I mean, and I got to see them play that. I was down in Dallas for work, and I saw. It was them. It was a Between the Buried and Me tour. It was Between the Buried and Me, Enslaved, Intronaut, and I don't remember who the opening band was, but and they did Death in the Eyes of Dawn that night. That's a really good, just catchy. That's another song I would like recommend to anybody that's getting into it. Yeah, it's just a good, catchy, earwormy, just good melody. Great Herbrand Larson vocals. Veil Burner is really great. Roots of the Mountain, that's one they do pretty often. But this is kind of where like once you get like into the, you know, into the guts of the record, it kind of like maybe I felt like there are certain things that just don't work as well as they could have. Like, you know, Roots in the Mountain, it's kind of like this big epic, and there's a lot of great moments on it. I just feel like it kind of like it goes into like this mid section where it just kind of breaks everything down, and it kind of goes into this other thing, and they have this sort of like what I like to call like shower core kind of chorus where it sounds like they're singing in the shower. You know, it's just like, it's kind of, and then it goes back to the original intent of the song, and then it ends with this. I mean, the ending of that song is it gives me goosebumps. It's so good. It's just epic and grand. But maybe just like, you know, for as good as songwriters as these guys are, like sometimes maybe it doesn't work quite as well as they're kind of hoping it will. I mean, very minor complaints, still a good song. The title track is really good. Matterhorn and Storm of Memories, that's when they get really kind of weird on this. Like the song Matterhorn, like they go into this strange, like it's almost like a polyrhythmic section, but it's really weird. I like it just because it like almost doesn't make any sense. You'll know what I'm talking about if you listen to that song. And then Storm of Memories is really cool. Forsaken is a great outro track, one of the great. You know, it's a perfect last song, as they're so good, as we've talked about them being good at intros and outros. I don't know, man. I really like this one a lot. I mean,
You know,
do I like it as much as Axioma? Probably not. But and there's certain things that don't work as well as others. But I think like the overall intent of the record, and it really worked pretty well. And you know, it's one of those that like I'll grab for it pretty often, just for those ones that I really like. And maybe it doesn't flow as nicely as I would like it to. You know.
here's my only criticism of the album. There's a lot of real high points on it. I think it's a little long. I think they could have shaved a couple of those songs instead of making them. I think there's 4 or 5 songs on there that are close to.
It's an hour and 7 minutes.
Yeah, it's an hour and 7 minutes long, and that's a lot to take in with that much going on, because there's a lot going on this album. A couple of those songs, and I'll note them when I get to them, could have been ever so slightly edited and just a little bit.
Totally agree.
This album
edited a little bit. If they would have just edited certain things here and there, this could have been a perfect record.
Yeah, I find when I get to the end of this album, I'm worn out, and that's I don't usually feel that with their albums, because for the most part, they've been pretty good at keeping things at just the right length. You know what I mean? I mean, Issa and Below the Lights are barely 50 minutes, or you know, they're 47 minutes, 46 minutes. When you get into the 67-minute mark, man, you're with this dense of material, it can fatigue you a little bit. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I think that's my biggest criticism. Well, Rick, I'm going to change it up just a little bit. Let me read and we'll do you last on this one, simply because I brought all that up. Thoughts Like Hammers, catchy, definitely has the Axioma sound again, and the verses have the harsh vocals, and the choruses have Larson's earworm cleans. Great lead-off track as usual. There's some interesting things they do as this long track progresses, like spoken words and atmospheric stuff in the background. Death in the Eyes of Dawn, another long track, very proggy. The synths in the background are cool, but the melody reminds me so much of an Axioma song. Like it could be a leftover from those sessions. Veil Burner, I believe, was the single off this album. I'm pretty sure, as I recall. It's a cool track. Probably my favorite track, believe it or not, Jimmy, is Roots of the Mountain, which is really heavy and has some real nice blasty beats, but it's highly melodic. Storm of Memories, great, very proggy, busy, almost sounds like a Dream Theater song. Weird that you brought up Dream Theater and then I bring them up, Rick, on a different album. In the beginning, there are some deathy vocals on this track, and the final song, Forsaken, is definitely a high point. There's some really cool Tangerine Dream synth like sections on it that I really dig. Again, my only real complaint about this is it's a very long album. Takes a lot of concentration to focus on it because there's so much going on, and there's a little bit of that sameness that creeps in as it unfolds. It's still an 8 out of 10 for me. It's just that the length of the album is daunting at times, even though I like the bulk of it. So, yeah, I think we have the same kind of thoughts there, Jimmy, more or less. Rick, what you got, man?
Well, first of all, I'm glad I'm going last because my thoughts are wildly different. I think than what you guys have. I do agree with your points though, and I can see why. And I think the difference is, you look at this album cover. First of all, if you don't know, like if I were to hide this logo, you don't know who Enslaved was. You look at this, you would think this is some kind of folk metal album. You know, what I mean, something along those lines. Just from the look of the art direction, photography, and everything. And I remember Enslaved has there's like a video, almost semi-documentary thing they have on YouTube. And I remember how they would like talk about, I don't know if it was Ivar or Brutal, like we're talking about how like they would take these breaks from touring and they would go back to the woods and do the basic simple things and go fishing and just enjoy nature. And I'm wondering if this is a statement to that with this album, because it feels like a very eternalizing spiritual kind of experience, kind of album. Because of that, I take a more passive listening approach to it, which is why I don't mind that it's so long. If you're taking a very active, listening approach to this, and you're trying to get all the little nuances, all the little things like that, whereas I let it just I let it just go and just play out, and I close my eyes, just kind of just experience the album. I think that's why maybe I kind of just rank it a little higher. I really do like this kind of earthy, kind of just surrounding back to the nature and spirituality kind of feel to this, with the direction. And I think, like you said, I think that's why they went heavy on the vocals and the singing, the clean singing too. Another one where they kind of scale back a lot of the nastiness. It's not as angry as Vertebrae was. I don't think they were going for that. Let me see. So,
well, Rick, they just looking it up real quick. I guess Ivar said that the title is based on rituals. That I guess retir means rituals, and the rituals of man. And they talk about let's see. Some of the songs take a historical perspective on pre-monotheistic religions around the world and their purpose. Others deal with the inner state and psychological side of rituals. Bjornson said, "We have all these different angles that we're looking at because it is evidently quite important. Holds the key to other things. We're not concluding. We're more asking, I guess, and exploring our own asking of these rituals, seeking to cause physical change in the world to alter reality, or is it actually more trying to change one's perception?" So,
and it makes sense for the ritualistic part of it, like it, and I think conceptually it stands apart from some of the ideas that we're doing with the other albums. Again, I don't know if it has something to do with their own personal experiences at the time when they were, kind of hitting the road and everything and going back to something like this. The songs themselves, what was I going to get to? For example, Dawn in the Death in the Eyes of Dawn. So that's probably my favorite one on this album. It's got the sort of flow and pacing that I think that I really like. The singing again really carries you away. I like the acoustic outro. What's the other one? We got Roots of the Mountain, another good one. Atmospheric keyboards, adds a sort of level of like a fog to the sound. Really like the bass work on it. Title track, nice opening hypnotic riff. Another one, again, this is a very taken aback. If you really enjoyed the vocals on this and the clean vocals, I think really shines. And just throughout this album, I can't emphasize that enough. But you just call it in the shower singing. I can see that side of it too.
yeah.
What else?
I hadn't thought of that. That's funny though. That's a funny point.
And then we have Material. Interesting drumming. It's kind of it's catchy. It's got the sort of "We Will Rock You" kind of thing going on. It's also, I think it's made to be catchy. And then the last track, it's probably the longest. It's like 11 minutes long, for good reason. It sounds big, massive. Up until the second half, it kind of lets you down gently from the whole ritualistic experience, because you need a way to kind of come out of that, right? So that's my take on the album. But like I said, I knew it would be different from you guys, like just an overall feel.
I don't think it's too different. I mean, as I said, the only thing that got me about this album is its length. It's just there's a lot of material on there, and
I let some parts become a little background music to me. That's why maybe that's why I don't mind it as much.
Yeah. I mean, if you're trying to focus on it, it's it's mentally, you really got to focus, because there's a lot going on in these tracks. It's not like it's like I don't know. It's not like it's a 9-minute Killing Joke song where they kind of beat the riff into the ground and just keep doing it. And don't get me wrong, you know how much I love Killing Joke, but Killing Joke are famous for taking a riff and stretching it out for 10 minutes. This band has 8,000 riffs in a 10-minute song, and you're kind of like, whoa, what? Okay, well, all right, well, you know. So it just takes a little bit more focus, and if you're not really locked in, you can miss some things, I think, is the way I'm thinking about it, you know.
I can see that.
All right. Jimmy, you want to hit the next one? In Times, right?
Yep. Yeah, I think this is kind of just maybe like my very like the things that I would criticize Retier for. Maybe they got a little bit better on this one for me. I like this one a lot too, man. I mean, so this is the end of Herbrand Larsen, unfortunately.
Yes.
And I was really sad to see him go, but from what it sounds like, it got to a point with him where he was, you know, becoming a lot more prevalent in the band. And I think he wanted to have a lot more of a say into what the direction that they were going to. So I guess that maybe didn't jive very well with what they saw as to the future of the band. So I think
did you read an interview about that? Because I read that it was an amicable split, and that basically Herbrand was getting asked to do a lot of production work, and therefore, because he was in demand production wise, which he does now, he couldn't commit 100%. And he said, you know, I can only commit 95% to the band. That's not going to work for these guys. They want 100% commitment. I don't know if you read that an interview. I read what Herbrand said himself on Blabbermouth, and he said, you know, I've had an amazing run with these guys, but I'm not able to fully 100% to commit to the band all the time because I'm being asked to do a lot of production work. Clearly, you know, if you're being asked to produce albums and things like that, you're making money, you know, and so you're getting paid well, you know.
Yeah, I mean, maybe it's I'm pretty sure I did read that in an interview, but that was probably years ago, so I could be completely wrong. I'm pretty sure I had read that he had wanted to take the band in a different direction, but you know, yeah, I mean, don't quote me on that at all.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure I read that in an interview, but yeah, I mean, I don't really remember seeing a whole lot else about the split, and it just kind of felt to me like the usual Enslaved, like, okay, it's time for us to move on from.
Time for us to get a new guy. Yeah.
Which to me is a little crazy because at this point, I feel like he's a pretty, you know, integral member of the band. You know, but we'll get to that with the next record. But within times, you know, I think it was really kind of. I mean, for me, I think this is like kind of Herbrand's kind of shining moment because he has a lot of stuff on here in terms of the clean vocals and some of his best stuff, in my opinion. And maybe I felt like this is very much in the same line as Retier in terms of the songwriting and what they're doing. You know, it's this sort of like Enslaved being kind of proggy, kind of like still metal, but maybe kind of spacey in a way. You know, where they were kind of like hinting at that with Retier. They kind of did a bit of that here as well. But I don't know, maybe I felt like this album was just a little bit more concise than Retier. Just kind of like the companion record, but it's I mean, every single track is good. I mean, I would be hard pressed to say that this isn't anything less than a 9 or a 10. Just because the songwriting is so good. I mean, Theresa Streaming is kind of in line with what you're hearing on Retier. Building with Fire is kind of like more of the rock and getting back to the rock and and showcasing Herbrand's vocals. You know, maybe albeit with a bit of showercore, but you know when you hear it, it's just, you know. But 1,000 Years of Rain, just really cool riffing and just fun. The drumming is, I would definitely like to, you know, that's one thing I hadn't talked about with the last record. Kato has always been great, but he really shined on Reed's here, and especially on this one. Some of his drum fills, there's just big epic sweeps down the toms. You know, if you ever see any live footage of them playing, he would have like, 5 or 6, rack toms set up, and he would just go right down that sucker, kind of like channeling a Neil Peart kind of, roll on those toms. Very evident in the first track, like Teresa's Dreaming, when they go into that breakdown, like he just gets that kind of deal. Really
He's a
fun.
great drummer. He's a great drummer, man.
I mean,
he
so
can
good.
do he can kind of do any style. He can do the blast beaty stuff, but he really is an effective prog drummer. You can really hear it.
Yeah. Yeah, and I saw them on this tour as well. And they did I think they did Teresa's Dreaming, and they did the title track In Times.
Yeah, I think I saw them one too. Yeah, that's a great song, man.
Great song. Yeah, so good. Yeah. I love the chorus. Again, her brand sounds just amazing. Really the highlight track for me, I think, is the last song, Daylight. Specifically because it kind of like has a couple different parts to it. But it just goes into this really beautiful, amazing Icedale moment. The Icedale solos. I mean, it's one thing I've kind of neglected on talking about some of these records, because I keep forgetting, like, this is so much music and there's so many great Icedale solos throughout all this stuff. But I think that last track, Daylight, his solo in that, it's just so emotive and and it's just like it showcases the fact that this guy isn't just like some shredder or like just some kind of like noodly guy. Like, he really does a solo that like adds to the song and brings another color to it, not just a solo over it. I mean, just like a lot of like, when you listen to a lot of like older Opeth stuff, a lot of their soloing is like, it's very like melodic and it's not just to showcase how good they are.
It serves the song.
Yeah.
It's very intentional.
Yeah. And that
moment, I mean, real quick, Icedale is a really accomplished player. He's more in the line of, he's kind of like a Neil Schon, where he plays incredibly melodically, but he's got a lot of good, he's got some skills, but he's not like doing a Steve Vai solo over it or a Joe Satriani solo over it, where, a lot of these songs just would not sound right if you had some dude, fucking sweep picking all over the place. You know what I mean? Yeah. I like a good sweep every now and again myself. I love a good Yngwie sweep and all that stuff, but I don't think those kind of solos work in this kind of music, generally speaking.
Yeah. And that's why they're so good. I mean, because Ivar knows what he's doing, and like, I mean, that's the whole thing. But my point is that like that when you listen to that last song and his solo, it just gives me goosebumps. It almost like brings you to tears. It's so just beautiful and transcendent and
emotive.
Yeah, and I saw these guys like twice on this tour. The one I talked about in Dallas, and then I saw him again in Denver with Yob opening up.
Oh, wow!
I don't know if you can see back here above my turntable, but I've got the poster.
Yeah.
Tell, but yeah, that was the tour poster, and it was.
That's a weird combo, Yob and Enslaved. That's interesting.
Well, Ivar, he really loves Yob. In fact, for the Fire in the Mountains, I mean, Ivar handpicked Yob for that.
Yeah.
I mean, he handpicked like half the bands that played the festival.
Yeah, well, right. That's cool.
So he handpicked Yob, Steve Von Till. Shit. I'm gonna have to go back and look at the lineup, but like the last day, I mean, most of the bands that play that day, he had curated for his Wings Over Utgard was the name of the whole show.
Yeah. I didn't know. I was not aware that they toured together. That's pretty cool. That would have been a killer.
And at the time, Yob had so when I saw Yob with these guys, not to derail, but they had just released Clearing the Path to Ascend.
So good. Okay,
but,
Rick, what?
Dude, great record. I love it. Yeah.
Yep. What you got, Rick, on this one?
Well, okay. So my story with this is when I started to explore Enslaved seriously, again, I think we were talking about this earlier before the stream. It's just, I knew the band, but for some reason or another, I just never really explored them. I would think I was deep into death metal and, the more cult stuff at the time. And then there's this prog band. I'm like, I'll get around to them sometime. not until 2016. And I started out with this. I started out with this album, of all albums, right?
So that was your first album?
This was my first to really explore the band. I've heard tracks here and there, but never quite, you know. And I didn't own anything by them. Yeah. This right here was listening to this and then going, okay, what, you know, and just going back to the catalog and then going back to, God, you know, the first album, you know, second, and, you know, like From Frost and all those other, it's just like, it's such a, like, this is the same band, you know, there was a, to me, this was more, it had more rock elements to me. It was a lot more, had a more of a lighter spirit. I mean, yeah, you had a lot of cool and riffing and all kinds of really good guitar work and stuff going on here, but it was not what I expected. So I didn't understand the whole context of Enslaved, you know, and through the whole sort of I guess just discography, you know, moving to where they were at it by this point. So I've had sort of revolving opinions on this album, simply because, you know, I think I mentioned this with part one. It's like my favorite era is those first few albums. That's my favorite era as far as just because, you know, for a lot of reasons. But this right here, like, I feel like here it's more apparent that, okay, so this is a band where they're a black metal band with prog elements and a bunch of other stuff. But with this one, maybe even a little bit here, I feel like it kind of got flipped around, where we're sort of this rock prog band with black metal elements, you know.
Hey,
like
hey, Rick, yeah. I'm going to interrupt you just for one, because of what you just said.
Yeah,
I'm going to read this to you. This is one of my final thoughts. Are Enslaved a prog band that plays black metal now, or are they a black metal band that plays prog? That's exactly what you just said.
This is what I got from this. Yeah. And this is why I think going from this to, and then later to their older catalog was kind of jarring to me. You know, kind of seeing this sort of progression. So I had to sort of put a new lens into what I was listening to. This is why I had evolving opinions on this. You know, I come to like it. You know, because for a while there I didn't like it. I liked it and I didn't like it, and then I came back again. So it was just kind of a roller coaster with it. It was more about trying to figure this band out overall. It's very challenging, even though this one here I think it was written to be very catchy with a lot of that intention. I wouldn't say it's trying to be radio friendly whatsoever. They're still very exploratory and you know, inventive and trying to do their thing, but within those parameters, you know. And like Jimmy was saying, you know, with the drumming, you know, it's just so catchy. You know, it just, you know, everything just kind of clicks. Let me see, like with Building with Fire. You know, again, I think I wrote down rock oriented sounding track. You know, you don't get the blast beats, or you know, you don't get really fast on the tempo. Actually, it does on the second half. You get the sort of tremolo kind of moments. You get sort of catchy vocal hooks. You can sing along to it. 1,000 Years of Rain. You know, they added like a rain effect in the background, I think, at some point late in the track. It's a cool transition, grooving riff around the 2-minute mark. Title track, it's the longest one here. Another really good track. It's not doing anything really different though. It's just a really good song. Nothing really noteworthy I can really point out. The last track, Daylight, another really good ender as usual. I like the intense moments. I just wish they were just stretched a little longer, because I think it's the best moments in the song. It's very thick, punchy. Again, just a good way to just end things with this album. So there's my take.
Okay. I'm going to leave you up just for a minute while I read the production notes. March 10th came out 2015. Enslaved producing with Ivor Sandoy. That's on Nuclear Blast, multiple studios. I have to admit, you know, I'm not going to lie about this. These last three, the last four Enslaved albums, I don't have as much of an affinity for as like I do the early stuff and especially the mid stuff. You know, as I said, Monumention, Issa, probably even Ruun is probably right on the outside edge of that. But Issa and Below the Lights, you know, that is my 100% honey hole, that sweet spot there. But I'm not as tied into these albums. It's not that I don't like them, because I do, but they, for lack of a better way of putting it, they've somewhat been repeating themselves kind of with the last couple of albums. So just keep that in mind. And again, these albums are stellar albums, but when it comes to the canon of Enslaved, I sometimes feel a little bit like, okay, I'm a little bit ready for something a little bit new and different, and I don't always hear it. So, but this album, when I listened to it today, I was pleasantly surprised by how much I do like it. Thuria's Dreaming kicks the album off great, like most Enslaved albums always kick off with great lead-off tracks. This is a pretty black metal song with the Enslaved trademark sound of the modern era. Building with Fire is great, man. I love that song. It's so catchy, man. That's the one I was trying to think of the name of, Rick, before Jimmy came on, the one that goes, you know, the da 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 da. It just has such a great melodic vocal melody. They're so good. Really gets
Yeah, I
your
think I wrote down
attention.
like you can actually sing along to it.
Yeah,
That's
exactly. It's a sing-along song, right? Thousand Years of Rain is massively proggy, but it's very black metal as well. You know, and Enslaved know how to do that better than pretty much anyone. There's a really cool acoustic riff that leads off the song, Nauthier Bleeding, or however you say that, Nauthier Bleeding. Another really solid prog black track. You come to expect all these things to these songs to stand out. There's a lot of clean vocals on this album. In fact, I would say this might be Herbert Larson's most, he's very prominent on this album. And the other thing that I think about In Times is, especially the track In Times, it's a very cinematic journey. Um, the last song, Daylight, probably the most unique mix of black metal and some dreamy, almost shoegaze stuff. With the last 5 minutes sounding so lush, and I believe that's the one you said the solo is so cool on, right, Jimmy? Daylight.
That's
Yeah.
it.
So this is a solid 8 for me. My only complaint would be that it's similar to Axioma in that, but the songs are a little bit longer. But it's such a good album, man. I mean. And when I'm away from it and I come back to it, I'm like real pleasantly surprised by how much I like it. So, all right, next up, E. Who wants to put that one up? Jimmy, you got that one? All right, I'm gonna read off the stats on it quick. Herbert Larson left the band. He was replaced by Hakan Vinge. It's also the last album for Kato Beckvold on drums. He leaves after this album. Came out October 17th, 2017. Jens Bogren mixed again. Enslaved and Ivor Sandoy, who became the drummer on the next album, Ivor Sandoy. Enslaved and Sandoy produced, and it's on Nuclear Blast. So go ahead, Jimmy.
Yeah. Yeah, this is also Kato's last album as well.
Right. Yep, I said that, yeah.
Oh, did you say that? Okay.
Yeah. I said Kato Beckvold.
Sorry to see him go. Artwork is kind of like very minimalistic, but there's something I like about it. I don't know. It's kind of cool. It's got the E with the teeth or whatever.
Yep.
I always feel like they kind of just, like want the artwork to be that way. Like they don't want like a big overwhelming, like kind of all kinds of stuff going on in their artwork, which is,
they don't, they don't want to do the old Roger Dean thing where the artwork becomes bigger than the music or something. That's kind of boring though. That's a really boring insight on that.
It's just kind of
like, I see a basketball court now.
I was just going to say basketball courts.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
That kind of is what it is.
Yeah,
well, funny thing when they were playing at Far in the Mountains when they introduced Ice Dale, Groot Lee said, this is the greatest tennis player in the band, because apparently Icedale played tennis before joining Enslaved or something, and apparently he's a great tennis player. Yeah, so maybe that was like a little nod. It's not really a tennis court. I don't know.
Well, let me ask you the obvious question. There's no chicks watching, and even if they were, they probably wouldn't know. But was he wearing a shirt?
Oh, nope.
Nope.
Of course he was. No.
And he's probably still ripped in his mid-40s, right?
Oh, let me tell you, if I had his abs, I wouldn't be wearing a shirt ever on stage either.
Fuck yeah, neither would I, man.
I mean, dude's like
he's ripped. He is ripped.
He's like a Viking god or something, you know. But yeah, this is cool pressing. This was like I think it was one of the first ones I like pre-ordered the vinyl. You know, preparing for this, because remember they released Storm Sun, the first song.
Yeah,
I don't know if you guys remember like when they released that, and I remember thinking like, yeah, this is great. Of course, it's got like a etching.
Oh, look at the etching! Wow.
Yeah.
Oh man.
Yeah, you know, the coolest thing about this is I was wondering how are they going to replace Herbrand Larson, because at this point he's a pretty big, you know, element of
element.
You know,
absolutely.
in terms of his vocals, and I think it's Yakin. I think they said
whatever. Yeah.
And that guy's like, I remember Grutley made another comment at Fire in the
Super
Mountain,
young, right?
Like,
he's really young.
Yeah, so like they did 2 songs from Hordane's Land toward the end of the set, which was kind of surprising. Like they did the 2 of the songs, and he was like, yeah, this song was written before Yakin was even born here. You know. You know, they have that like real dry humor, kind of like the Swedish do, like Norwegian.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I think another really great record. I mean, I don't really have a whole lot bad to say about it. I mean, maybe it's a little bit better than In Times. I think maybe like there's a slight injection of like, you know, obviously with the lineup change, you know, maybe kind of like the end of sort of what they've been doing since Axioma, because I think the next record takes it to a different direction. But this was like, you know, kind of like just building on the sound that they have been building upon. And at this point, you know, they don't really have to really experiment that hard. They just have to write, you know, Ivar is just going to write good songs. You know, I mean, there's definitely like, there's sort of that Middle Eastern kind of vibes that they have in Sacred Horse, and
so good.
Yeah, so good. And they bring out the sax on Hindsight, the last track.
So good, so good.
You know, for me, the River's Mouth, I mean, that's kind of like another Building with Fire kind of song. It's got the same sort of rockin' kind of vibe to it, you know, with the showercore kind of stuff, and just good catchy, you know, where Storm Sun was kind of like the big epic to start with, which was interesting. I took my wife to go see these guys for this tour. It was the Decibel tour. It was Enslaved, Wolves in the Throne Room, Chemists, and Mirkur, I believe.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, which was really cool. And because my wife, like, she likes some metal here and there, and she likes a little bit of Enslaved, and she likes Wolves. But I mean, I think Wolves was kind of the draw for her to come and see what they were like live, and you know, so she liked Mirkur, and when Wolves went on, dude, it was like one of those situations where it was so goddamn loud, like you couldn't even enjoy it, you know, because it was, I mean, just, and she hated it. And I felt awful because like I wanted her to like that band a lot, and then she really dug Enslaved. I remember that night they did 2 tracks from Viking Lyre Veldi, and then,
wow,
you know, they opened up with Storm Sun, and then they did I don't even remember the other ones, but yeah, it was 2 songs from Viking Lyre Veldi, and I think they did Sacred Horse that night. But anyway, yeah, I don't know, man, just another good record. I mean, at this point for me, they're just such good songwriters that they just never really do any wrong for me at this point. And, you know, the standout track for me is probably Axis of the Worlds, because that just has another one of those great Icedale moments, like the Icedale stuff on Axis of the Worlds. The soloing is, you know, again, just emotive and melodic and bright and wonderful and hooks you in. And I love it. 3 tracks. I think Storm Sun's probably the longest one. Sacred Horse is really kind of the outlier where they're doing like that sort of Middle Eastern stuff. But the new kid, he does a great job. He sounds a lot like her brand.
Really does. Really does.
And I think it was kind of like one of the sort of rock star moments for him because he was a young kid and really like Enslaved and was a really talented musician and just had the right voice for this. So I mean, it just all the stars aligned for him to be a member of the band going forward. And as far as I'm concerned, not a beat was missed in terms of filling Herbrand Larsen's role in the band.
It's really weird how it's pretty eerie how close he comes to sounding like Herbrand. I mean, I think I prefer Herbrand a tiny little bit, maybe just a tiny little bit, but because he has a slightly different timbre to his voice or tenor to his voice. But man, this guy sounds so much like him. It's like I almost didn't notice till I really focused hard and was like, okay, I do hear a little bit of difference there, but
I didn't even know that until I started looking it up. I'm like, damn, like had you not told me, I wouldn't have even noticed it. Like
we didn't even notice it
or researched it. Yep.
Rick, you wanna lay into this one?
Yeah. Well, with within times, remember how I mentioned like I was part of the reason why I struggled is because I was just trying to figure out the band, right? And they were cooking the soup. I think since you said, Jimmy, since like Vertebrae, Axioma, leading up to this point. And the formula's there. Like they got the recipe. They just got to go out and put out this record. And with E, I think they perfected that formula with what they were going with. I think by this time though, like I guess what you recognize as the black metal sound from their heyday, like it's pretty much non-existent here. Like it's pretty much a very very this is probably the most accessible point by this album. I think had I started with this album, it would have been an easier ride for me because it's just that much better. I think overall,
you think that album's more accessible than Axioma?
No. In times.
Oh, okay, all right, okay.
I'm talking about from where they were building up from with the change in sound.
Oh, okay.
Just trying to give it a little context. Not like Axioma. But everything you said, I think that it's a very confident album. Again, like I mentioned earlier, like they're just they pretty much figured out their sound. They knew what the prog elements fit in the context of the whole band and just everybody's role, despite the fact that they got a new band member very much like the old band member. Storm Sun, that one is opening track, another good one. It's got a light opening, clean vocals, quite layered in the choruses, kind of adds to the atmosphere. Then it goes into this sort of abrupt kind of a mechanical timing measure, and it's got a nice balance of music and vocals in there. I like the mixing on this album. That's another thing too, that besides the just the songwriting, I think from a production standpoint, I think they were just hitting on all cylinders. So I don't know who did the knob work on this, but did a really good job.
As far as production,
yeah.
Did you say it was mixed by Jens Vogren and it was produced by Ivar Sandoy, their drummer. Is the guy that's the current drummer now?
Yeah.
He wasn't the drummer. He was not. He's the current drummer now. He's the guy that's been in the band now. I guess probably 3 or 4 years. When did that come out? Yeah, when did that album come out again?
2017, I think.
17. Yeah, I think he joined in 18. And but he's been producing all the way back to, I think, Axioma, actually. So, yeah.
Wow, he went that far back. Okay.
Yep.
All right. I think what you guys said, Sacred Horse, that one stands out too. It's got the sort of this exotic scale going on. You can tell they were again experimenting and try something different there. I think it really added a lot for this album. It also just makes it kind of stand apart from the flow of everything else in a good way. Hindsight is it's another not so typical track. It's quite ethereal. kind of Pink Floydish to me. There's some exceptions here and there.
It's kind of shoegazy. The latter part of the latter part of the song.
But Floyd would get into those kind of moments, and on their albums, it kind of has that feel for it. But so Hindsight's the last track, but and I remember earlier you were telling me that they had some bonus tracks, and they had that one cover song on it, so that would be on this album, which is it's a Norwegian pop band called Royskap, I think something like that. So the song's called What Is There. That is damn catchy.
Man, I love that song. I love that cover.
It just shows you that and at that point, they can kind of write, even though that song's a cover, but you can see kind of where they're willing to kind of explore and try different things. Even
Jimmy,
something like a pop song.
Jimmy, does the album have that on it? The bonus tracks?
No, but
okay.
I've got the cassette tape.
Okay, so you've heard it.
Have it. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I love
if you
that.
check out
that cover song.
Have you seen the video for that song, for the original song? It's really weird, man. It's like this girl floating around, just like milk coming out of her or something. Yeah, it's very trippy. Roy Scott.
I'm pretty sure Opeth did a cover of a pop band. Didn't they do that on? Was it on this album or the last one? They did that cover of a Swedish pop band, Den Standen Dingen something. I forget what album that's on. Might have been on this last one or the one before it. What was the album before this recent one for Opeth? I'm trying to remember.
Sorceress?
Sorceress? Was it Sorceress?
Yeah, that was the last one before the new one.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's probably on this this recent one then. They do a cover of like a pop band, which is kind of cool. Yeah, I'll throw up a couple of quick ideas here. Yeah, Storm Sun, wistful opening into another great opening track like usual. The River's Mouth has some chanty vocal refrains on. Is that what you're talking about? The showercore stuff?
Yeah.
The chanty stuff? Okay. Yeah, I don't generally like that stuff because I really don't like power metal most of the time, but I like it on this song. Great cleans. Again, the new guy. It's similar to some of the songs on In Times. And it's really amazing how close Vinge sounds to Larson on the cleans. I like the chorus of River's Mouth a lot. Sacred Horse, cool organ, has very proggy black metal meets Deep Purple intro. Great song, especially the Arabic parts that sound very mystical and super cool. Axis of the World is very jammy, has a heavy bluesy prog sound wrapped in a black metal shell. Good track, not my favorite though. Feathers is solid rocker, if a bit unremarkable. And Hindsight is excellent, very proggy, very pretty, even has an amazing sax solo in it. The two bonus covers, one's kind of a pop cover. I didn't write the name of the song down. What's it called again, Rick?
It's called What Else Is There?
Okay. And then the other original is a doomy, almost death-like bonus track that Ivor wrote. That's pretty cool. It's kind of groovy, actually, that song. I forget what it's called. Departer or something? Jupet, that's it, yeah. So this is another strong 8 for me. I really fucking love Sacred Horse. That song's so good.
Yeah.
But yeah, so all right, we're down to the last album, then we'll talk about the 2 EPs quick and the new single, and we'll tie it all up, guys. We should be done by 10 o'clock, I would think, close to it. Who wants to go with Utgard? Utgard.
I got it right here.
All right, Rick.
Yeah, so this is quite a departure yet again, right, from the last one. I think with E, it was kind of a bit of an end of an era, and I think with this one here, you kind of hear, even when you listen to like the new tracks and what they're doing now in the latest EP, you hear those semblances here, and I think they're trying to go back to introduce more of the black metal elements like they did in those older albums, and kind of rear some of that here. This is just looking at this in the sky, this pretty much speaks to the music. It's very much atmospheric, and they really lean on that to kind of create and just that whole vibe with the atmosphere and melody and everything just kind of carries the album through. It's a very mature band from a very mature album from a very mature band. I think that this is I don't know if this is an album to begin if you're just getting into this band. It's a cool album. It's a really good listen. But to understand the band themselves and their trajectory, this is I don't know how you would take it based on what they do here. I mean, I like what's going on here. This but this is a band you really need to understand, to really get their music. And this is why I think I struggled a little bit in the very beginning when I was getting to this band, trying to figure out what they're about. Obviously, when I got this band before this came out, so by then, I kind of got the idea of what I was getting into. So let me just pull my notes. Yeah, the songs are they're less long-winded. They don't do the super long tracks on this one like they did on previous albums. They introduced some of those black metal elements, not quite as heavily like those older elements, but you can tell they're not going for that accessibility the same way they did previously. You still hear some of those rock influences on here. Let me see. We begin with Fire in the Dark, cool acoustic intro. You got the chants. To kind of set the tone of what this is. I mean, it is Utgard. It could sort of takes you to this land. So they're trying to just kind of prep you up to get you there, and just kind of just with the flow with the record. Sequence, good song. It's exactly what I've been kind of suspecting with this band is late. They kind of shit more of the sort of rock type of direction. That just happens to play black metal. Let me see. Rochan, I think that's how you say it. Another keyboard lovers orgasm track. I've heard a little bit of Wakeman in here, even a little Simonetti. If they decide to stay in that sort of dark passage, ending it with Distant Seasons. It kind of the last track brings what the first one did, kind of bringing the acoustic elements kind of full circle. Giving you the impression of a completed journey with this. Really good, expansive, full of this sort of airy kind of density. So yeah, this is I think the next phase of kind of what they're going through. You hear on this album is not as dark as I would have liked on some of their older stuff, but again, I just calibrate towards what they're trying to do in this one, and I do like the approach, but I'm not always in the mood for this album. It's not something I put on too frequently.
Jimmy, you got this one?
Yeah. This is kind of a weird pressing too. This was like the Nuclear Blast mail order, from. It's just this weird, weirdest vinyl I have in terms of color. It's just kind of strange, but
oh wow,
I guess it kind of fits with the if you look very subtly, there's kind of a yellow kind of light coming out of the tower there. I guess this is Utgard.
Yeah,
I like that pressing. I think it looked pretty cool.
Yeah, it's kind of just different, but I approached this one with a lot of apprehension, just kind of I guess at the time this came out right in the middle of COVID, and
it was supposed to come out early in 2020, and they ended up holding it off to October.
Yeah.
Well, so there wasn't a lot of promo done for it. I think they wanted to they were hoping that the pandemic would be over by then, and then realized, oh, it's not going to be over. So the guys are like, let's just put it out. Let's get it out there.
Yeah.
But you're right. There wasn't a lot of fanfare for it.
Yeah. It was I felt like at this point, I've really enjoyed everything they've done so far, that I guess I felt, just with kind of moving on and other stuff and listening, just going in a different direction. Maybe I was a bit apprehensive as to what this was going to be like. And, upon the first track that was released, was Homebound or
Yeah.
which I really liked
Homebound,
at first, but so I picked it up. I feel like Ivar Bjornsson could almost write a book on how to have a successful band. And the reason I say that is because like every time they make a lineup change, it's like for the better. And it's just, I got to attribute it to him knowing what's right. And as you were talking about, like, what's the drummer's name? Sandoy?
Ivor Sandoy.
Is it Ivor?
Yeah,
Ivor
it's
Sandoy.
it's like to say Ivor, but I think they pronounce that with a V.
Right. It's not
the
Ivar.
O has a straight line to it.
Yeah,
like there's Vladimir in Russian, but there's Voldemir
Right.
or whatever in Ukrainian.
Right.
No, it's kind of like
Right.
different. I mean losing Kato is a big deal, of course. And I didn't even know this guy was so involved in the band so early on. I mean, now looking back in the credits for all the records, it's like, wow, he's been there for a while actually. And then they brought him on. Great drummer, but also has a great vocal. I didn't even realize that he was singing until I don't know if you guys saw that cinematic tour footage where they did all the COVID.
Yeah. Yep.
And they showed
on the sound stages. You mean live on the sound stages?
Yeah.
They were killer, man. They were so good.
It was awesome. And so the record came out, and I listened to it a couple of times. I was like, yeah, it's good. I just wasn't ready for it.
Right.
And then I saw that video of them doing Homebound with Ivir or whatever his name is on drums, and he does. I didn't realize he does.
He's singing too. Yeah. He's got an amazing voice.
Dude, in that video, like where they got him front and center and he's drumming and he's singing, I was absolutely blown away. Like I cannot believe how good that was.
Yeah.
And it's a great song. It's a really, really great, catchy Enslaved song. Just really captured me in a lot of ways. So like this has really been a grower record for me.
Right.
And I really like that they're kind of going back, like they're kind of like subtly introducing some of the elements from their early sound, from the black metal of old, while introducing some new stuff, and it's not a long record. It's there's no big epics or anything like that. All the songs are just like, going back to Axioma, it's like 4 or 5 minute songs. Over the last 2 years, this has really grown on me, and to the point to where I love this so much. I'm willing to say this is a 10 out of 10. It's probably my favorite thing that they've done since probably Issa. I mean, and I know that's kind of a bold statement, but I mean, I really feel that way. I don't know. It's just, I've listened to it so much, and it's really, really just grabbed me. I mean, there's such a, and one of the things I noticed from the Fire of the Mountains, I keep going back to that, but I have to, is that they opened the show with the second track, Jetagrita,
yeah.
And it was so epic. I mean, like there's that section where like when they're getting into it, and then all of a sudden the drummer goes into the big ride bell, dun, 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 and it was so heavy and like just I mean, massive sounding. I remember looking at my friend Jeremy that I was there with, and I was like, dude, this is one of the greatest bands of all time. No doubt. I mean, it was so like perfect, and just and it was the song that just kind of brought me back. So they did that song, and they did Homebound, which was great. Yeah, that was the only 2 songs they did from this record. But the rest of it's great too. I mean, I love how they do that sort of krautrock thing on our Urcho tune or Joe tune on the second side. Flight of Thought and Memory is kind of like gone back to what they do, and like it kind of fits with the name of the title of the track. And then they go into the big epic, like I don't know, like that big melodic Distant Seasons at the end. Just grabs me, even though it kind of sounds like sort of like showercore. But I don't know, man. Just the whole thing over time, this one has really grown on me, whereas like I was really kind of not receptive to it at the beginning, because I was like, they've been on such a trajectory for me that like I just can't accept that they're going to have another great record, but they surely do. And
No.
I'm hoping that this signifies that, where they're going to go next. Bring back some of that old feeling from their roots in terms of, the Norwegian sound. And I felt like that's bleeding in a lot more in this than it has been for a while.
I feel like they're building off another base now. Like there's the beginning of the next phase of the band and the sound. That's why I haven't returned to it all too much. It just, to me, it just feels like, especially when you listen to the EP after that, you kind of hear the boost in the production compared to, which we'll get to. That's why with this, it kind of feels like it's just another foundation. It's a good album. It just feels like it's just another idea that just they're gonna start developing and putting new things into.
Yeah,
so really,
maybe in a lot of ways, it's like the next, like Below the Lights kind of thing. Like it's.
I was just gonna say you stole a little of my thunder.
Oh.
That is kind of. Did you already talk about this one, Rick?
Yeah,
you did. Okay, sorry, I got sidetracked there. Yeah, that's one of my thoughts there. This is the album I'm least familiar with, and it was the last one I got to listen to today, and I kind of had to roll through it quick, but they dropped the longer tracks for more concise lengths. This album reminds me a lot of Ruun or Issa a little, only the clean vocal sections are more in your face and better fleshed out. There's still a lot of melody in all these songs, but they bring back a bit of the intensity from the Viking/black metal standpoint. As usual, Fires opens hot. Great song, Jira, Graya, whatever it is, which is a single. This one smokes, very intense driving. Homebound stands out, really good vocals, catchy. The last song is very, very cool. I really love that last song.
that's
The
my
other
favorite one.
songs in the middle, nothing jumped out at me because I was probably I'm not gonna lie to you, I went from what did I wake up and listen to today? I had intentions the other 2 days of getting to this earlier, and I don't know, over the weekend things got a little wonky for me, and I think we decided to. Rick, when did I decide to do this? Was it Saturday night? Is that when we talked about doing it? I think, yeah. It was after. It was after wrapping up the Bluthaus Nord thing with Kellen, which, by the way, remind me to talk about that at the end, Rick, so I don't forget. I kind of was like, you know what? I really want to fucking get this back on the books. I really want, because we did a really killer one back in April, and then everything got weird, and then my health really started to slip. And my health really is slipping bad. I mean, I'm not gonna lie to you guys. I'm really, really concerned I'm not going to be around in a couple of weeks. But I just felt like this hanging out there was bothering me. You know what I mean? It was bothering me that we did it, and then I accidentally got rid of it 2 weeks after that by accident. And I mean, I don't even like the fact that Eric and my deep dive on Warrior Soul got X'd out, but quite frankly, I'm not sure I want to give him a whole lot of publicity after the way he acted. Not Eric, but Kory Clarke. But anyway,
I was gonna say, I think he's the only guy that's really happy you did that.
he probably is. He's probably glad I took it off because I shit on some of his albums, but they weren't very good albums. But I just kept thinking, man, I really want to do this, and then it kind of got me when I decided to do the Bluthaus Nord thing with Peter and Kellen. I was like, you know what, we have to knock this out. So I'm glad that we have a couple more quick things to talk about, but I'm glad we came back to this. But the problem was that I really had to jam a lot of these albums. I kind of decided 2 days ago, you know what, I really need to re-listen to all these. I know them, but I don't know them like the back of my hand. Certain tracks I know, but I don't know every song. So I kind of, unfortunately, by the end of today, I got to Utgard late. I really would have liked to have had 2 solid listens to it to draw a better opinion, because it's the one album I've had very little experience with. Rick sent me a CD copy of it back in April or May, probably late April, something like that. It's the one album I haven't gotten to, but I'm going to. So, but what I hear of it is good. It's a great album, and that's the problem with Enslaved. that's the problem and the good. It's the problem and it's the good problem and the bad problem. They have never put out a shitty album. They've never put out, honestly, a very mediocre album. And therefore, when you start reviewing them, you almost get fatigued with happy thoughts and fatigue with you almost run out of things to say because
Yeah.
it's also it's the quality of it's all so good, right? And I would honestly say that Enslaved is one of the very few bands that I could honestly say I just don't think they have a mediocre album. Like when we talked about Blue Dust Nord coming up, which you guys I'll talk about here in a minute. There's a couple of those albums that are really difficult, man. Like Mystical Beast of Rebellion, I do not like that album. It's just one monotonous wall of sounds, same song, sounds exactly the same as the Pyro song. And that guy has put out some fucking amazing albums. Blue Dust Nord and Enslaved are probably my two favorite black metal bands. Dissection's in there, there's a couple others. But even Dissection put out a kind of album, a pretty shitty album. But they put out two fucking stellar high water marks. But Enslaved, you almost get tired of going, oh man, it's another great Enslaved album. But really, it kind of is the case. The only criticism I would throw at them is that up until this album, the last three albums or so kind of were in the same vein. And I was going, all right, I kind of want to hear something a little bit different. And then they come back with Utgard, which is kind of a throwback to Issa or Ruun or maybe even Below the Lights a little bit. And that's a good thing, So it'll be really interesting. Let's talk about the EPs real quick. Rick,
Spend
do
some
you
time
have
with
them?
it, man. I'm telling you, spend some time with it. I mean,
Oh,
at least
well.
it took
yeah.
me a bit, but I really came around to it. And,
Yeah. It's interesting that you framed it that way by saying, I just wasn't really sure. And but they won you over because, well, that's what they do.
Well, you know how it is, like with like certain bands, like especially like a band that consistently releases good stuff, and then you kind of like move on to other things, and like you're kind of interested in other things, like, and then the band they're like, okay, we got a new album out, and you're like, come on, it can't be that good. They've already released enough good shit. But then you know what I mean? Like,
Well, good example that would be Rush.
Yeah,
Rush,
or Opeth,
or Opeth. Yeah, I mean. Rush has a couple of albums. They have 2 or 3 albums that are just kind of but I remember when I heard about Clockwork Angels coming out, I'm like, I didn't love Snakes and Arrows. I like it. There's some really good songs on Snakes and Arrows, and then there's some okay stuff.
Yeah, there's some stinkers on that one.
Yeah, I mean, I love the fact that they came back and they were re-energized and playing a lot of shows and everything, and I got to meet Kenny and Alex on that tour. But the album, it's a 6 out of 10 for me. It's the good songs are really, really great. The not so good songs, they're And I can't, I can only think of maybe 3 other albums that are below that album. That would, like Test for Echoes, like a 5 out of 10. Roll the Bones, like a 5 out of 10. So albums like an album that you love that I kind of hated way back when, Hold Your Fire, that's more like a 7.5 and 8 out of 10 for me. It came up in my if they would have left Ty Shan off, I think it would have been a great album. That song I still don't like.
Yeah, kind of crap.
Geddy Lee doesn't like that song either, by the way. But I can't honestly think of any Enslaved album that I would ever throw a 5 at. I just can't think of one.
Yeah.
Other than maybe some of the demo stuff from way back when. And shit, even the Phobia demos are so interesting. Yeah, the quality of them is not that great, but they're interesting. They're like bizarrely interesting. So, I think what happens is, I started to say when Clockwork Angels came out, I didn't hold out a lot of hope, dude. And when I threw it on, man, I was fucking captivated almost from the very beginning. And that's a 9.5, almost 10 out of 10 album. It's a beautiful album. It was the best way they could have ever gone out. It's just a fucking amazing album. And I got to see him 3 or 4 times on that tour and the last tour. And so, Enslaved is kind of one of those bands. They're just a rare band. There's, so I'm looking forward to what's coming up. We'll talk about that briefly. Actually, let's do that now. Have you guys listened to the song? I've only listened to it twice, the new song Kingdom. Okay, haven't checked it out?
Yeah, I checked it out. It's very weird, very trippy. I mean, I like some of the guitar work on it, but it's definitely does not sound what I was expecting compared to what their last EP was like. I thought it was gonna be something more in that direction. It feels like you're, I don't know, like you just on a ayahuasca trip or something with that song. The you know, you got the clean and you got the harsh vocals happening. I think I mentioned it to you earlier. Like, I think the only part that really was jarring to me was the clean vocals. At this time, it sounded like every time it came on, I kept hearing Tommy from Amorphous. It just has that tone to it.
Interesting.
I
didn't hear that. I didn't hear that, but I haven't listened to.
You listen to the newer material, like you listen to Halo, listen to the last one, Queen of Time. It's because that's another band that's moving in a more kind of progressive direction too. You know, they're trying all kinds of weird and crazy experimental things. Good band. You know, it's just like I wasn't expecting that coming from Enslaved as far as just the clean vocal moments.
You know what I heard, Rick? What I heard oddly was I heard some Baroness in the guitar. Did you hear that? Like that weird interweaving. Yeah, it's like a weird interweaving guitar lines that kind of was like, whoa, that's a interesting sound. Sounds like Baroness kind of, which, you know, was kind of unusual. For me, you know, I've only listened to it twice. I need a lot more I need a lot more spins. I will say I wasn't crazy about the odd spoken sung clean parts towards the end. They were a little unusual. I didn't hear Tommy from Amorphous, but I will be honest with you, I haven't listened to the last two Amorphous albums because as much as I like Amorphous, I kind of feel like Amorphous has kind of made the same album over and over and over ever since he's come in the band.
Yeah.
That maybe isn't fair, but I do feel like they get kind of samey. I like Skyforger a lot and I like Dark Waters, but it's like I kind of feel like I have a tough time differentiating Amorphous songs from album to album. Except for that new one. What was it called? The Queen Bee or something, or
Queen of Time.
The Bee? Queen of Time, yeah. That one stood out to me, but a great band. I mean, they always put out high quality stuff, but they're a band that I fear sometimes repeats themselves a little too much.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I mean, we'll have to see where we're going. Like I said, are Enslaved a prog band that plays black metal now, or are they a black metal band that plays prog? I'm not really sure anymore. It's like the lines have been blurred for quite a long time, and they seem to just continue to come up with interesting material almost all the time, but they aren't the same band now that wrote Frost any longer. You know what I mean? I couldn't see him going back to doing that, but how about we talk real quick about the two EPs? You have them, Rick?
Yeah. Okay. I got the Sleeping Gods. Pick Your Poison.
Okay. Oh, you got them. Oh, wait. Okay. Oh, you got two versions?
Well, okay.
Wait, one,
I don't know if you recall,
but Thorns, right? One's Thorns, right?
One has the Thorns
right.
EP along with it, so it kind of combines the tracks. This is the 2016.
Right, 2016. Okay.
The OGs from 2011. So the original tracks from 2011, and this was the part of the whole Scion. They were
the giveaway. Yeah. And what's on that again? What's on that one right there? Read what's on there a minute. Just two tracks? Is that two or five?
Well, one's instrumental. So there's 5 tracks, one's instrumental.
Okay.
And then this one you have the 2 tracks from the Thorns EP.
Right. And so there was only, just so I understand, the Thorns EP was just 2 tracks. Was that a CD or was it a vinyl only?
I've only seen it in 7-inch form, as far as I know.
Okay, so
maybe that's why.
Okay, got it.
Yeah, they figured, not everybody has that, so they figured it makes sense to package it with this. Might as well. They came out around the same time. This came out between the what is it? The Axioma between the Axioma and
Retier. Yep.
Session, so it makes sense. I think these tracks actually are more with the Axioma sessions. So it
I
kind of
agree.
fits leftover. But funny enough, I think that these tracks are an improvement. Axioma is a great
good.
album. And it's just kind of I'm like, kind of makes you wonder. Like, I guess the tracks were good enough, obviously, that they decided to pull, an EP out of it. And also it's a nice holdover from, for people waiting on Retier to come out.
Right.
So I don't know how long before Retier was announced when he dropped this. So again, I wasn't into Enslaved at the time when these tracks dropped. But yeah, so first track again in Norwegian, so Monumention. I guess is how you say it. It's probably the hardest hitting track on this EP. It's you can tell there's a mystic shroud of sound happening here. If the cover art didn't clue you in, I think this one's a little more appropriate.
Yeah,
I'm not a big fan of this artwork here, the original one. I'm glad they went with this.
Yeah, that's cool.
Such a 1,000% improvement. This looks like something like a stoner, trippy psych doom band would come up with.
You're right. It does have a trippy stoner vibe to it.
Just has that feel. What is the second one? Alu Miskuri. It was just the second one. Fast moving track. Another intense one. I like the first track. The drumming gets more varied in styles. I noticed. There's even some parts that kind of reminds me of a little bit of D beat, which is not the band. Interestingly enough, very good lead parts. Kind of giving it a nice contrast and texture to everything else that's going on. We got synthesis. That's the title suggests. It's a cool kind of ambient track. It could fit nicely into like sort of like an 80s like low budget horror flick. I'm thinking like something Tangerine Dream would do.
Oh yeah, it's very Tangerine Dreamy, very much.
Yeah, kind of interesting they went that direction with this one. You can see all their influences. So that's another good one to point out. Nordlies.
That's a good one. That's a great track.
I like this one a lot.
I love it. That's the instrumental. That's the instrumental, or does that have vocals on that one? I'm trying to remember.
Well, this one is it's the instrumental one. Yeah, it's
That one's got some super great riffs on it, and it's pretty black metal-y from what I remember.
It is, though the drumming, it kind of feels a little post-punkish in a way. Not again, another one not typical of what they do. I'm thinking like maybe this is why they decided to leave those tracks on the EP. Maybe for some reason what they were trying with the instrumentation here they thought it wouldn't have fit with Axioma. It's a nice escape from the usual stuff, and I guess this is why EPs exist. It's a nice sort of something in between to get people that felt like wouldn't fit on the album, of course. Title track, thunderous, not surprising given it's a title track. I just wanted it to be a little louder with the pounding in the mix to really bring it home. The vocals I think competes a little bit with the rest of the music. I think maybe it's a little up in the mix. I guess they were trying to achieve a more like a live sounding experience. I'm not quite sure. Even down to the last track, this might be my favorite track. It's great. Another good one that an ender to this EP. I guess it's very reminiscent to what's coming up with Retier. I feel like this is a good way to kind of a segue track to what's going on. It has more of that tone. It's dark and brooding. Quite venomous. There's a flute. I think is what it is going on here. Midway, I think that kind of adds to the eeriness. So it's a good EP.
Yeah. Do you want to speak to Caravans real quick too? And Caravans came out from Nuclear Blast in 2021, right? That was
yeah.
I think
the last thing to put out.
Yeah, let me just hit that real quick. 5-track EP, October 1st, 2021, Nuclear Blast. That one came out. There was 1,000 copies of it pressed on 12-inch or 7-inch? 12-inch, right?
12-inch right here.
Yeah. And there are 4 variants, 300, 3 with 300 and 1 with 100. Which one did you get? Which one do you have?
It's called Moonstone.
Oh,
Limited to
sweet.
300.
Look at you, man. Lucky bastard.
Such a nerd. I kept the string on there.
By the way, you can find these on Discogs. They generally are in the $40 to $50 range.
Are they really going for that?
Really?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
Just 4 tracks.
Yep.
Yeah, I slept on it.
Yeah, I did too. I thought they were going to
Issa
put it
on
out. I thought they were
pretty
going to
nice.
put it out as a CD, and they never did. Apparently, it was only going to be a vinyl only thing. So
I feel like they should. I mean, just going for stupid money like that. I mean, these
pretty
people,
sure, Jimmy. There's one if you look on Discogs right now for 35. I thought I saw one. Of course, I didn't look at shipping. It's probably $8,000 in shipping or something. But
Yeah.
Nah, please.
Either they'll do another press of it, hopefully. But
yeah,
I slept on it and it sold out.
I actually just found us just stumbling on their site one day. I didn't even know it came out. Like this, I don't know if they just silently released this, and there was not a fanfare for this one. I don't know. Like I just never heard the buzz on it or anything. You know, when this dropped.
I remember when it came out, and I looked at it and I was like, I wasn't really into grabbing vinyl. And I thought, well, they're gonna do something with it CD wise, and then it never had. So maybe they will in the future. Maybe they'll do something like the Sleeping Gods or something. But although I wouldn't mind having that one on vinyl. But
now that you mention it,
any thoughts on those? I mean, it's basically 2 interludes and 2 instrumentals and 2 regular tracks. Any thoughts on those?
it's great. You know, every track here I think it's a good kind of extension to Utgard. I think kind of just it builds on it. I like the direction and the production on this, so I'm hoping. But I don't know. Hearing the Kingdoms track, it kind of doesn't give me all kinds of assurance.
Yeah, it doesn't sound like those tracks. Kingdom doesn't.
Man,
I don't think.
First track's good. Even the second one, dense, heavy. It mixed really well. Again, I almost wish like there were tracks on Utgard that sounded quite like this in some way, but it is what it is.
Right.
Ruun 2. I think this one could have fit with the Sleeping Gods EP. I think as far as the style and just the sound, it even the Ruun 2 even has a bit of a kind of a Dead Can Dance vibe to it, which is
it
pretty
does.
good.
Yeah. Very good. I remember when I first heard that, I said something to Nick about that second track is it's the second track. The instrumental stuff has a very Dead Kid Dancey sound.
It's I think here they have it as the third. So it's the first one aside B.
Oh, okay. Third track.
The epitaph.
Yeah.
Which kind of throws you off because you're thinking like, okay, it's just something they've picking up from the Ruun album. It's nothing like it.
No. Jimmy, have you heard? You have these? You own any of these or no?
Yeah, I mean, like so the Sleeping Gods. I mean, I just got a copy of this recently. I bought this based off our last time we did this because I hadn't really spent any time with this.
Right.
And, yeah, it's really good. I mean, it's interesting because like they don't usually have a whole lot of stuff left over. It seems, right? I mean, It's not like Enslaved puts out EPs like all the time. But from what I understand, like the first 4 tracks were the Sleeping Gods, and then Thorn was the last 2 tracks. Right. I found the Thorn EP like really interesting, even though it's like kind of hard to get into. Like it was just like sort of a like just industrial kind of black metal kind of, but throwback to their just roots or something. I don't know. Not easy to get into, but like, some of the tracks on Sleeping Gods are really good. I can't help but feel like, some of the stuff was just not quite in place for, and thank God they didn't add any of this to Retier because there was enough music on there as it was. But, the second track, Alu Monsieur Ski or whatever, probably my favorite one on that one. Great Icedale solo on that, ripping Icedale solo. The Caravans to the Other Worlds, of course, I slept on, but I will say I haven't really spent enough time with it, but they did play that title track, Caravans to the Other Worlds, at Fire in the Mountains.
Oh, did they?
Cool. Yeah.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
Oh, must have been awesome.
Yeah, and it was and that's really the only track I really kind of remember from the whole thing. I just haven't listened to it enough,
Right.
Even that new song, I kind of felt like I only listened to it once, but I kind of felt like even just the first listen, like it didn't really seem like it was fitting of like a new album. It seemed to me like it was sort of just a a one-off.
A one-off.
But
Yeah,
at
I
the same
felt that
time,
way too.
like I haven't listened to it enough, and again with Enslaved, sometimes like I'm probably gonna have to listen to it some more. I'm sure they've got a new record in the can coming up pretty soon here.
You'd think, yeah.
Mhm.
Real quick thoughts, me on those two EPs. The EP, the Thorn Sleeping God, you know, the very first song, Heimwegen, is the actual music they used for the documentary. So, and we talked about this last time, but the documentary, there's a 12-part documentary out there. I think the most of the segments are like 15 to 20 minutes. You'll have to look up. It's on a Norwegian TV station, YouTube channel. They split it up into 12 parts. That's kind of the lame part of it, but man, it is so well done, that documentary. It's awesome. You know, starting at the very beginning of the roots of the band and, you know, up through all their successes, and they've won numerous Norwegian Grammys and all kind of shit. I mean, I wouldn't be shocked. I wouldn't be shocked if they are probably the most successful current Norwegian band going right now. I mean, can you guys think of anybody from the metal scene that might be more popular? I mean, I know Mayhem might be, but I don't know. Like,
I mean, Darkthrone does pretty well. I mean, considering.
yeah, but
I mean,
Darkthrone never tours, so I mean, it's just
true.
on reputation alone. I mean, I don't think anybody goes out and tours like these guys and has bigger records right now.
Not just album sales, but also just exposure element.
Exactly. So if you want to check out that documentary, I don't know if you ever saw it, either you guys, since we talked about it, but it's worth the time you invested in. It's so well done. Yeah, I think that first song, Heimwegen, has very much an Axioma sound, and it sounds so good. Alu is thrashy and very good. Synthesis is a really cool ambient. Electronica, Tangerine Dream track. Nordley's is a really cool proggy instrumental. Really, really killer song. And the final track is a solid traditional sung in Norwegian. Very worthwhile owning this. As we said, let's see. The Thorns thing was released as a Scion promo, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, not the Thorns. The Thorns was a separate thing. The Sleeping Gods was the.
The Sleeping Gods was the Scion thing.
This was the Scion one.
Yeah, the you can find them out there. I looked. You can find them. They're, it depends on who you run into, but I've seen them anywhere from $25 on up to $75. Let's see. Both the Thorns tracks are really, really good. I really like both them. And Caravans, The Outer World, again, I slept on, like you, Jimmy. There's two really, really solid like vocal tracks on there. One is kind of in the In Times proggy vein. The other's pretty acoustic and folky, which I really like that one a lot. The third one, I guess it would be. And then the two cool Atmos Dark synth tracks are really cool. And as we said, that was 1,000 12-inch vinyls, 4 variants, 300 of 3 of them and 100 of 1 of them. You can still find them out there if you look around. Let's see. Yeah, on the Kingdom, real quick, Logan asked about that. I'm not sold on it. I have only listened to it 2 times fully and 1 time partially. It's a good point. It feels incomplete. I kind of felt that way a little bit too, but sometimes I feel like that with Enslaved, that they're an investment and I got to put a little time into it, and usually it clicks and I'm like, oh shit, this shit's brilliant, Guys, I want to thank you so very much for redoing this. I'm glad we did it and got it knocked out.
I got one more thing.
Oh yeah.
I made an order. I made an order through Cosmic Key some time back, and it was like a blind buy. Funny enough, so here we're doing this deep dive, and for some reason it didn't occur to me to pull this out the first time. But are you guys familiar with Trinacria?
No, I don't think so.
This is a side project. I guess it's a one-off thing. So it's got Ice Tales on there. Ivar and
wow.
Brutal are on this, and so this came out in, let me see, I think it was 2000. I want to say 2008. So this would have been around the time Vertebrae Axioma era when this came out. So this is they got a few of other people on here too, and so this is sort of this is their industrial electronic sort of project. It's still proggy, but rather than going the black metal, I mean, it still has those elements in there too, but it's very interesting. It's like this is their sort of electronic black metal industrial side project. So for those who don't know, it's like, yeah, so I don't know why.
Heard of that one.
Yeah, I don't know why it wasn't mentioned or promoted or anything. Again, I got this as a blind buy, having no idea, those guys were involved in there. So this is one of those deals where, like, I made a big order through Cosmic Key. I'm like, let me make the shipping worth it. So I threw a couple things, and this was one of them. And I'm like, fuck, man, it's pretty good. I mean,
I like the artwork. You gotta like industrial.
The music is a lot like this. It's kind of crazy and kind of just, you can tell they're experimenting with different stuff. So I don't know if it was meant as a one-off thing, but that's cool. I mean, I'll spell it out in the comments if anybody's curious.
Yeah, what's the name again?
Trinacria.
Oh. Yeah, I found it. Holy crap.
A weird name.
Just that one album.
Ivar Sandoy's in it. Bjornsson. Brutal. Yeah, man, everybody's in there.
So it's basically Enslaved.
Pretty much.
A few other members, yeah, but yeah, it's got the core group.
Huh.
You might dig it. It's out there enough and weird, and I think it might be your thing. You like electronic music?
Oh, I do. Yeah, I'll check it out. I'll check it out online. So guys, like, I want to thank you so much for giving up your Thursday night to do this after I fucked up and wiped out the first iteration of it. And it would be interesting if we could just replay that and just see how much changed, but I don't think too much changed. I think we're pretty locked in on this band and how we feel about them and how we view their material. And it's for those of you just tuning into this one, don't forget there's part 1 where we go into the early, more black metal catalog. Rick, what you got coming up over on Dreadful Minutes? I know you got school coming up, so you're probably not going to be doing as much, but you got anything in the...
I'm still leaving room for some stuff. I got a cool video on Ohio Death Metal coming up soon, highlighting a certain label, and got another VCLT thing and some more collection updates. So, just trying to squeeze room for that stuff. But there are videos coming up. Still live streaming, so might do something this weekend. If you guys are up to it.
To see how that works out. Yeah. Jimmy, what do you have going on? You've got your hiking series that you do every now and again. You've had a couple here recently that were a lot of fun. You got anything coming up that you're going to do?
Yeah, I've got a new video I shot this last weekend, but I don't know. I had some problems and it didn't really come out as good as I hoped it will. So I don't know. I still need to.
Are you talking about a live video out on the trail?
Yeah. Well, I mean,
that's a bummer.
My normal,
not live, but
the show is just ideas.
Yeah, I bought a new camera and I haven't really figured it out yet, and I had some weather issues, and I'm still, I don't know. I just haven't done it enough to try to figure it out. So I'm hoping maybe it'll come out pretty good, but I'm trying to up the ante on the hiking videos, but it's just
hard to do.
It's hard trying to figure out how to do it, and
it's a lot of work too, man.
Yeah,
it's not like shooting a music video where we're all here. You gotta put the camera down and walk away and do your distance shots and all that stuff.
Well, that's also just making the scenery look good and the camera, the camera work look good. So I don't know, we'll see, but I'm trying to work some stuff together there, but maybe do some streams coming up here too. I'm going to try and have that dude you recommended to me, Rick, Darkwoods from.
Oh, that's James.
James,
You know James Darkwoods 79. Jeff, I don't know if you're familiar with us. He's another avid traveler, man, but he does international shit. He's all over the place.
Really cool stuff.
I'll send you his Instagram, man. He's got some really good pictures of just a lot of his hikes and stuff he did in Norway and all the.
I was gonna say, Jimmy, do you know Canyon Bickle? You know
Yeah,
Canyon?
I know the name.
Well, he has a channel. He's been around for quite a few years. I want to say what, Rick, maybe 6, 7, something like that.
Yeah, he's been around a long time, almost as long as
Now,
Wyatt, I think.
yeah, he's
No?
been around a long time. He travels a lot, dude, and he goes to Norway. He's gone to some fucking killer places.
Does he have dark hair with glasses?
Yeah, no, long hair, tattoos, real skinny.
I know
Kind
the
of
name.
always,
Yeah.
you just look up that channel, KANYAN BICKEL, I think.
Yeah, I
think
recognize the
it's-
name. Yeah.
I mean, my only issue with him, and it's not personal at all. He seems like a pretty cool dude. He does kind of get into some sketch from time to time, NS stuff. Although I haven't seen him show a lot of that lately. And he could be a bit of a snarky dude, but in a funny way. He's generally just being snark to be snark, but he
Yeah.
would probably be a really cool guy to fucking have on. Now, whether you could get him to commit to it or not would be different.
Quite young. I think he's still in his 20s, right? He's still
late 20s. Yeah, late 20s, 20, 28, 29. But he's traveled to Norway and he's traveled to all kinds of fucking cool places. I'll try to when I get off here, I'll go to his thing and I'll send you a link.
Yeah, hook me up. And, because Rick hooked me up with Darkwood, so I'm gonna try and get that dude on pretty soon. But also, I want to let you guys know too. Like, I just wanted to say, like, y'all always like send me, the invite to come on Saturday night. I just want to say thanks. And like, the only reason why I usually don't come on because I'm not here. Don't take that as like I'm not like wanting to like come hang or anything like that. It's
no, dude. You also are married, and your wife isn't gonna stand by you fucking live streaming every night of the week or something like that. I wouldn't either. If
well, it's either that or I, like literally like this time of the year, I'm literally out every weekend.
Oh yeah.
So like, but like I'm just saying, like keep inviting me I will be around next weekend if you guys are doing anything. It's just I just want to make sure you guys know. Like I always want to join. It's just Saturday nights are usually not good for me. Yeah,
I'll go, man. Brother. No, you're an avid traveler, man.
We don't. I've sent Dennis a million requests. I've sent Dennis a million invites, and he's like, "Yeah, man," and then he never shows up. So I mean, and it's cool. I understand it. I mean, you guys got to understand, and Rick really knows this more than anybody, is that with my deteriorating health, getting out and going places is almost impossible. I'm gonna try like hell to go see Porcupine Tree in 2.5 weeks with Serge. But I got to be honest with you, man. I don't even know if I'm going to be able to walk in 2 weeks. That's how bad things are getting. I don't have a lot of time left, guys. I'm going to tell you that straight up. I'm not trying to be hyperbolic at all, but, like here, I keep the light down low on purpose. But you can see my eyes are actually dying. You see how my eyes are all super purple and all bloodshot? Yeah. I'm actually starting to have so many blurry spots in front of my eyes like that, and it's a clear sign that the blood's not getting to my eyeballs. I have pain in my eyes so bad all the time. The dizziness I feel when I'm upright. I took my dad shopping on Saturday. We went to the grocery store. He took me. He drove because I'm scared to death to drive now, and because I don't see. My depth perception is very off with a lot of stuff.
If you're having vision issues, man, driving is like the worst thing you can do.
Yeah. So, I know it's weird because you guys in particular, Rick in specific, and some of the other guys I've been talking to for 2.5 years, I started telling them a year and a half ago, this is not going to end well. I know it. And you keep looking at me and I keep showing up every weekend, but I've disappeared the last couple of months because I'm just not feeling well enough to do it regularly. And when I do this, like when I get off here tonight, I'm going to go out and get something to drink and eat. I'm going to try to take a shower, and I'm going to be fucking crushed tomorrow. Like I will barely be able to function. And I got to tell you, man, I wouldn't wish what I got going on with me on my worst enemy. I would not. It is. And Rick knows because he lost someone dear to him through a very similar type of neurological condition.
Oh man, all those things all things you do for granted, man. Like I've seen it firsthand. Like in your case, it feels like you ran a marathon, man. It really does.
Well,
You know?
it's like I'm constantly like just doing things like getting out and making a dinner for myself feels like I ran a marathon. It's that unreal. And I'm a guy that Jimmy 7 years ago, before all this started, I'm riding my fucking mountain bike 60 miles a day. I'm hiking, I'm hiking. I'm out every weekend going places. Playing soccer 5 or 6 days a week. That was going on until about 7 years ago. And now I can't run. I'm having a lot of trouble walking. And you just don't understand what that does to you. It just, this is going to sound awful and I shouldn't have this on here, but I just want this shit to be over, man. Like, this ain't who I was all my life. And it's painful. And when you start to become incredibly disabled, you're just like, fuck this, man. Like, fuck this. Anyway, I'm gonna start crying if I keep going. Anyway, real quick, do you have anything coming up though soon, other than you're gonna try to maybe put that video up if you can get it fixed? Other than that, you got anything happening?
Yeah, pretty much, man. Not too much, just we'll see, it's I mean, like thanks for your heartfelt I mean, we're all hoping for you, man, and
I know.
from my side, yeah, dude, just I mean, life is pretty stressful. I mean, my work has been pretty hard lately, and it's hard to like get out and really do the things that I want to do, and that's why like the weekends like kind of matter the most to try to make the most out of it, so
Sure.
it's even harder to like try to say like I'm gonna like it'd be fun to like shoot tons of videos and shit like that, but I'm just glad that like I've gotten to just do shit like this with you guys, that's
what
what
say,
really,
man. We were all able to connect, man, and we all have same thing in common, man. Like we wouldn't do this deep dive if we didn't like things like Enslaved. Like it's got a kind of a good escape, from all the shit we have to deal with, outside
absolutely.
of here.
I mean, that's why I started my channel, was just this is it right here, just talking to you guys and like just networking and talking to people that like music and shit. I mean, this is what it's all about, so I'm glad we've all gotten to found each other and kind of talk, and this has been a lot of fun. I hope we can continue with
So,
so
speaking of deep dives, I want to clue everybody in, and I'm gonna put something up on my YouTube then. Kellen and I, Killing for Company, Kellen and I, and Peter, who does not have a YouTube channel, but he has the Metal Vault on Instagram, where he throws up all kinds of fucking rare CDs that a lot of us don't have, that bastard. We ended up sitting down the last 2 Saturdays, this past Saturday and the Saturday before, and we were going to do this on my channel, but because of how I've been feeling, I felt really guilty about not doing it, but I kind of called it off. And then at the 11th hour, Kellen said, look, would you mind if I did the Blut aus Nord deep dive? And I said, no, man, I definitely want you to do it. Absolutely. If I'm feeling up to it, maybe I'll join you. Well, I pushed myself last Saturday to get to it. This past Saturday was tough. I've really slid in the last 10 days hard. I was actually in the ER last Monday for 8 hours. And so we're doing that Blut aus Nord deep dive part 1, which is the first 7 or 8 albums. I forget whether it was 7 or 8.
Yeah, Ellen just posted a trailer or something, just uploaded it.
Oh, did he? Okay, cool. So go to Saturday night at 6:30 is the premiere. We did not do it live. He wanted to edit and put all kind of cool stuff in. Rick did the artwork for it. So Blut aus Nord, Saturday night on Kellen's channel, live premiere. I think me, Peter.
I'll write in the comments here.
Yeah, me and Peter and Kellen are going to be in the comments chat in case you want to ask us questions or whatever. And then part 2, I gather, might be next weekend whenever he gets the editing done. But that one was, man, I mean, you think this one was deep? That one was really deep.
I can't wait to see it, because I don't know some of those early records.
So I gotta say, I'm burnt out on. Hey, what's up, Tyler?
Hey, Ty.
Hey, Tyler.
And I actually talked to Tyler, and we kicked the idea around about that battery thing. So maybe, just maybe, in a week or 2 or 3, if I'm feeling up to it, if I'm still here, we'll try to see what we can do there. Not a promise, because I just can't do that. Worst case scenario, maybe that's something you want to do, Jimmy, and I just join you. I don't know. We'll figure it out. We'll figure it out. But yeah. So, guys, thank you so much for doing this. Love you guys. You're awesome. And
I'm
yeah.
glad we did it, man. I'm glad we got it back out again. I mean, it was fun to just revisit the stuff, you know. I mean, this is one of my favorite bands of all time, so
Well,
I'm happy to do it. You know,
that's the thing. I mean, if it was a band we all thought we were kind of lukewarm on, I'd have been like, whatever. But it just felt like there was unfinished business there that I fucked up, and I did. I fucked it up. It's shit happens. So
anybody could have done it, man. Like, I mean,
it'll go out there, and now it'll be out there, and everybody can wrap up the trilogy, or not the trilogy, but the dual parts. And can't thank you guys enough, and really appreciate it. And,
absolutely.
Yeah.
All right, guys.
Stay tuned for the
Thanks, guys.
stream.
Thanks for watching.
Yeah, everybody that tuned in tonight, thank you. I think we had about 12 people at one point, which was kind of cool. It is a weird night, though. On a weeknight, people don't have the ability to probably hang as easily. Plus, we were on during dinner time for a lot of people out west. So,
Well, Maya popped in the beginning, but then she said she'll catch up later. So, got a few.
Awesome. So, yeah, there's Kellen there. He's in the chat now. So go over and check his. I want to see everybody go over and sub to Killing for Company and watch the Boot House Nord Part 1 with myself and Kellen and Peter. So
can't wait to see it.
Yeah. All right, boys.
All right, guys.
Have a good night. Thank you, guys. I really appreciate it. Love you, dudes. Peace out.
Later.